So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the first demon slayer and creator of all breathing sty. Less Naruto x Shinobu Kocho x Mitsuri Kanroji, demon slayer. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. The Fox's Breath. The dying Su-en cast long crimson shadows across Konoha village, painting the humble dwellings in hues of blood and fire. 12-year-old Naruto Uzumaki sat perched atop the storehouse roof, legs dangling careless over weathered shingles as he watched villagers hurry to complete their evening tasks. The air carried autumn's first bite, crisp and sharp with the promise of winter, yet the boy wore only a thin cotton yukata, seemingly impervious to the chill that sent others scurrying toward hearth fires. Konoha wasn't much compared to the grand towns that travelers sometimes described, just a collection of wooden structures nestled in a valley where 3 mountain ranges converged, protected by ancient forests older than any written history. But it was home, despite the sideways glances and hushed whispers that followed Naruto through its narrow streets. Uzumaki, get down from there before you break your fool neck. The gravelly voice of Elder Sarutobi cut through Naruto's thoughts. The village headman stood below, pipe smoke curling around his weathered face as he squinted upward. Naruto grinned, revealing slightly pronounced canines. I've never fallen yet, old man. There's always a first time, Sarutobi muttered. But his stern expression softened. Come down. Chuki's daughter brought ramen to my house. It'll get cold. The boy's eyes widened, bright blue irises catching the last sunlight. In a display of agility that would have made most adults wince, he leapt from the roof, somersaulting once before landing in a perfect crouch mere inches from the elder. Sarutobi didn't flinch. He'd seen this boy perform impossible feats since before he could walk properly. One day you'll explain how you do that without breaking every bone in your body. If I knew, I would. Naruto fell into step beside the elder, hands clasped behind his head in casual confidence. It just feels natural. The elder studied him from the corner of his eye. The boy had always been different, not Saint the strange whisker marks on his cheeks or his unnatural endurance, but something deeper. Something the village elders discussed in hushed tones when they thought no one was listening. The hunting party should return tomorrow, Sarutobi said, changing the subject. They've been gone longer than expected. Takeshi said they were tracking something big in the northern forest, Naruto replied. Something that's been leaving entire camps empty. Sarutobi's step faltered momentarily. Takeshi talks too much. Is it true? About the empty camps? The elder sighed, tapping his pipe against his palm. Just merchant tales, exaggerated with each telling. Nothing for a boy to concern himself with. Naruto frowned but said nothing more as they approached Sarutobi's house, the largest in the village. Though still modest by any standard beyond Konoha, the scent of miso and pork wafted through the air, momentarily displacing Naruto's curiosity about the hunting party. Ayame, the ramen maker's daughter, was just leaving as they arrived. She smiled warmly at Naruto, one of the few villagers who did. I made extra noodles for you, she said, tucking a strand of brown hair behind her ear. Father says you're the only one who truly appreciates his broth. Chuki's the best in all the provinces, Naruto declared with absolute conviction. When I travel the world someday, I'll compare every bowl to his. Big dreams for a village boy, Sarutobi commented, sliding the door open. Big dreams for anyone, Ayame corrected with surprising firmness. Something in her tone made both males look at her with newfound respect. She bowed slightly and departed, sandals clicking softly against the packed earth. Inside, Sarutobi's home smelled of cedar, incense, and old scrolls, a scholarly scent that Naruto had come to associate with wisdom. The boy settled at the low table where 2 steaming bowls waited, his movements suddenly contained, almost reverent. For all his boundless energy, Naruto showed surprising respect for Sarutobi's home. Itadakimasu, they said in unison before breaking their chopsticks apart. Silence reigned as they ate, comfortable and familiar. Through the open window, crickets began their evening symphony, accompanied by the distant hoot of an owl beginning its hunt. Naruto was halfway through his bowl when he noticed Sarutobi watching him with an unreadable expression. What? he asked through a mouthful of noodles. Did I spill something? No, the elder replied softly. I was just thinking how much you resemble your father when you're still like this. The chopsticks froze halfway to Naruto's mouth. In all his 12 years, this was the first time anyone had mentioned his parents directly. Orphaned as an infant, he'd grown up bouncing betway. Village families, tolerated rather than loved, present rather than belonging. My father. The words emerged as a whisper, noodles forgotten. Sarutobi looked suddenly older, as though regretting his words. Forgive an old man's reminiscence. No. Naruto's fist struck the table, sending ripples across their soup. You can't just say something like that and take it back. What was he like? What was his name? And my mother? Did you know her too? Why has no one ever told me about them? The elder sighed deeply, setting down his chopsticks. I've made a mistake. There are reasons why we don't speak of your parents, Naruto. Dangerous reasons. I don't care about danger, the boy insisted, leaning forward. They're my parents. I have the right to know. Rights, Sarutobi mused, or Zuri's afforded to those in peaceful times. We haven't lived in such times for longer than you've been alive. Outside, the wind suddenly picked up, howling between buildings with unexpected ferocity. Both heads turned toward the window as the cricket songs abruptly ceased. An unnatural silence descended, broken only by the wind's mournful keen. Sarutobi rose with surprising agility for his age, moving to the window. His body tensed as he looked toward the village perimeter. What is it? Naruto asked, sensing the change in atmosphere. The watchtower's fire is out, the elder replied, voice tight. And there's no movement on the walls. A woman's scream shattered the night, high and terrified, cut short with sickening suddenness. Then another, and another. Stay here, Sarutobi commanded. Reaching for the ceremonial sword that hung on his wall, a blade Naruto had never seen drawn. But I can help, Naruto protested, already on his feet. Stay here, the elder's voice carried UCH authority that Naruto froze involuntarily. Sarutobi's eyes softened momentarily. If I don't return, there's a hidden compartment beneath the northeast corner of this room. You'll find answers there. Before Naruto could respond, Sarutobi was gone, sliding the door shut behind him with such finality that the boy felt it like a physical blow. Outside, chaos erupted. Screams multiplied, accompanied by crashes and an odd, wet tearing sound that raised the hairs on Naruto's neck. He stood paralyzed by indecision, torn between obedience and the desperate urge to help. The choice was made him when something massive slammed against the house, splintering wood and sending him sprawling across the tatami mats. A section of roof collapsed inward, revealing the night sky where stars were now obscured by billowing smoke. Coughing, Naruto scrambled to his feet as a sickly sweet odor permeated the room, metallic like blood but tainted with something putrid. Through the newly created opening, he glimpsed a towering silhouette against flames that now illuminated the village center. It wasn't human. The proportions were wrong. Limbs too long, joints bent at impossible angles. As it turned, moonlight caught its face. A grotesque mask of humanity stretched over something inherently other, with too many eyes blinking independently of each other. Naruto's breath caught in his throat as the creature's gaze found him. Its mouth split in a grin that extended literally from ear to ear, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Small morsel, it hissed, voice a discordant jumble of tones as though multiple throats spoke at once. Tender and sweet, the boy's body moved before his mind could process fear. He dove through the shattered wall, rolling into the street as massive claws raked the space where he'd stood. Training with village hunters had taught him how to fall, how to roll, how to make himself a difficult target, but nothing had prepared him for the creature's speed. It pounced with impossible agility, cutting off his escape route. Up close, the wrongness of it was even more apparent, skin that seemed to bubble and shift, limbs that elongated at will. This was no animal. This was something from the tales old women whispered on winter nights to frighten children. Oni, demon, no running, little morsel, it crooned, saliva dripping from its extended maw. I prefer the taste of fear when it's fresh. Naruto backed away, mind racing through limited options. The main street behind him led to the village square where flames now illuminated multiple similar creatures, tearing through buildings and villagers alike. To his right, Elder Sarutobi's house continued to burn. To his left, a narrow alley might offer escape, if he could reach it before the demon. He feinted right, then dove left, utilizing his small size to slide beneath the creature's grasping claws. Howling in rage, it spun with unnatural quickness, slashing down his back as he tumbled into the alleyway. Pain blazed across his shoulder blades, hot blood soaking through his yukata. Still, he didn't stop, pushing his body to its limits as he wove through Konoha's labyrinthine back passages. The village was dying around him. Through gaps between buildings, he caught horrific glimpses. A woman suspended in midair as something with too many mouths fed upon her, the village blacksmith fighting valiantly with his hammer before being torn in half, children running only to be snatched by elongated limbs that descended from rooftops. Nausea and dizziness threatened to overwhelm him. From blood loss or terror, he couldn't tell. Somehow, he found himself at the village's eastern edge, where the forest began its climb up the mountainside. Behind him, Konoha burned. Before him, darkness promised either sanctuary or different dangers. The choice was made when a chorus of inhuman shrieks announced his pursuers had caught his scent. Naruto plunged into the forest, barefoot and bleeding, 12 years old and suddenly the last survivor of Konoha village. Dawn found him collapsed beside a stream, kilometers from the smoking ruins of his home. Naruto had run through the night, driven by adrenaline and instinct more than conscious thought. Now, as pale light filtered through ancient cedars, his body surrendered to exhaustion and blood loss. The cold water lapping at his fingertips roused him momentarily. With supreme effort, he dragged himself to the stream's edge and drank deeply before examining his wounds. The gashes across his back had stopped bleeding but looked angry and inflamed. Without treatment, fever would claim him before sunset. I never thought it would end like this, he whispered to the indifferent forest. Strangely, he felt no tears. Perhaps he was beyond them. Or perhaps the horror had been too absolute to process. It doesn't have to end at all, child. The voice startled Naruto into alertness. An elderly woman stood on the opposite bank, so ancient that her skin resembled parchment stretched over bone. She wore traditional priestess garments, faded and patched but meticulously clean, and carried a gnarled staff adorned with paper talismans. Who are you? Naruto managed, struggling to sit upright. Did you escape the village too? I haven't set foot in a human settlement for 30 years, she replied, crossing the stream with surprising agility. But I felt the awakening last night. After so long, they've returned. They? Naruto asked, though he already knew. Oni. Demons. The ancient hungry ones. She knelt beside him, inspecting his wounds with clinical detachment. These should have killed you. Yet here you are, already healing. Naruto tried to twist to see his back, wincing at the movement. I've always healed quickly. Indeed. Her eyes, milky with cataracts yet somehow all-seeing, studied his face. The markings remain. Interesting. Markings. His hand unconsciously touched the whisker-like lines on his ch. Eeks that had marked him as different his entire life. Signs of the binding. She reached into her robes, producing a small ceramic jar. Your parents paid a heavy price for that binding. His breath caught. You knew my parents. I helped bring you into this world, Naruto Uzumaki. She applied a pungent salve to his wounds, her touch surprisingly gentle. I watched your mother and father sacrifice everything to ensure your survival. Who were they? What happened to them? The questions tumbled out before he could contain them. The old priestess sat back on her heels, regarding him thoughtfully. Your father was Minato Namikaze, perhaps the greatest warrior this land has ever known. Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, last daughter of a clan renowned for their sealing arts and life force. Together, they formed the final bulwark against the demon tide 12 years ago. Naruto absorbed this information with widening eyes. Were they killed by those things? Like the villagers? No, she said softly. They died completing the seal that saved your life, and potentially, all human lives. She tapped his stomach. The Kyubi no Kitsune. The nine-tailed fox. The most powerful of all yokai. They sealed it within you. The boy looked down at his abdomen in disbelief. Inside me. But that's impossible. Hardly. The Uzumaki clan specialized in such bindings for generations. She resumed applying medicine to his wounds. The fox was neither good nor evil, simply power incarnate. When the demon king Muzan began converting yokai into oni, the fox was his primary target. Your parents prevented that by binding it to a human soul, yours, where Muzan couldn't reach it. Naruto's mind reeled with implications. So these marks, my healing, that's because of this fox. The Kyuubi's chakra has been healing you since infancy, she confirmed. It also makes you uniquely capable of fighting what's coming. What's coming? Those demons already destroyed everything. Anger flared within him. At this woman and her cryptic explanations, at his parents for their secrets, at the world for its cruelty. What you saw was merely the vanguard, she replied calmly. Scouts, sent to find what Muzan has sought for 12 years. Her gaze penetrated him. You, Naruto, the vessel containing the power he craves. A chill ran through him that had nothing to do with his injuries. Why are you telling me this? What am I supposed to do? Survive, first. She rose stiffly. Then find Jiraiya of the mountain sages. He was your father's teacher and swore an oath to train you when the time came. And how exactly am I supposed to find this sage? Naruto demanded, frustration mounting. The old priestess smiled for the first time, a surprising expression that transformed her ancient face. You won't need to. He's been watching over you from afar your entire life. Recent events will bring him to you. She turned to leave, then paused. One last thing, boy. The key to wielding the fox's power lies in breath. Breath, he echoed, confused. All life begins and ends with breath, she intoned formally. Find the rhythm that harmonizes your spirit with the fox's, and you'll unlock power beyond imagining. Before Naruto could question her further, a bone-chilling howl echoed through the forest, much closer than comfort allowed. The old woman's expression hardened. They've tracked your blood. You must leave this place. She pressed a small paper talisman into his hand. This will mask your scent for a time. Head east toward the rising sun. Do not stop until you reach the three-peaked mountain. Wait, Naruto called as she turned away. You never told me your name. She glanced back, her smile enigmatic. Names have power, child. Mine has been forgotten for good reason. Now go. Your parents did not sacrifice themselves for you to die before your journey begins. With surprising speed, she disappeared into the forest, leaving Naruto alone with Revelat. Ions too enormous to process and danger closing in from all sides. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of pain, exhaustion, and fear. Naruto pushed himself beyond reasonable limits, topping only when his body threatened complete collapse. He slept in short bursts hidden among tree roots or rock crevices, always alert for sounds of pursuit. The priestess's salve worked wonders. By the second day, his wounds had closed completely, leaving only tender pink scars. More disturbing was the occasional flicker of red energy he glimpsed surrounding his hands when danger felt particularly close. Visible confirmation of something other residing within him. On the 4th day, he reached the three-peaked mountain she had described. Massive and imposing, it dominated the eastern horizon. Its uppermost reaches perpetually shrouded in mist. At its base sprawled dense forest, gradually giving way to rocky slopes where vegetation grew sparse. Naruto stood at the forest edge, uncertainty gripping him. The old woman had given no further instructions, just reach the mountain. Now what? His stomach growled painfully, reminding him that forage berries and stream water made poor substitutes for proper meals. The last of his strength had gotten him this far. He needed rest and food before he could continue. A rustling in the underbrush sent him diving for cover, heart pounding. He pressed himself against rough bark, scarcely daring to breathe as footsteps approached. Human footsteps, from their rhythm, but he'd learned painful lessons about appearances. You can come out, boy, called a gruff male voice. If I meant you harm, you'd already be dead. Naruto remained hidden, weighing limited options. The man sighed heavily. Fine, I'm leaving food by the large boulder. Eat or don't, makes no difference to me. But if you want to learn why the Nine Tails chose you as its vessel, come to the waterfall on the mountain's western face before sundown. The footsteps retreated, fading into forest ambience. Naruto waited a full 10 minutes before cautiously emerging. True to the stranger's word, a cloth-wrapped package sat atop the boulder, containing rice balls, dried fish, and a small flask of water. His stomach overrode caution. He devoured everything in minutes. Only after satisfying immediate hunger did the man's words fully register. He knew about the 9 tails. Could this be the Jiraiya the priestess mentioned? Curiosity and desperation won over prudence. With renewed energy from the meal, Naruto began circumnavigating the mountain's massive base, seeking the western waterfall. Sunset painted the cascade in brilliant oranges and golds when Naruto finally discovered it, a ribbon of water plummeting from dizzying heights into a crystal-clear pool. Aided on a boulder beside this pool was a man unlike any Naruto had ever seen. Tall and broad-shouldered, with a wild mane of white hair tied back in a ponytail, he cut an imposing figure even at rest. His clothing was eclectic, traditional hakama pants paired with distinctly foreign armor elements and an elaborate red haori decorated with scroll work. Across his back rested a massive sword wrapped in cloth bindings, its hilt worn from years of use. The man didn't acknowledge Naruto's approach, instead continuing to write in a small journal balanced on his knee. Only when the boy stood directly before him did he look up, revealing facial markings in red that extended from his eyes like tear tracks. "You're late," he stated without preamble. "You didn't exactly provide detailed directions," Naruto retorted, immediately regretting his tone. If this was truly a mountain sage, respect might serve better than attitude. To his surprise, the man's stern expression cracked into a grin. "Spirited. Good. You'll need that." He closed his journal with a snap. "I am Jiraiya of the Mountain Sages, former teacher to the Yellow Flash of Konoha, author of world-renowned literature, and..." "The old priestess said you'd train me," Naruto interrupted, too exhausted for lengthy introductions. "She said you knew my father." Jiraiya's expression sobered instantly. "Mito sent you to me. So she still lives." He studied Naruto intently. "Yes, I knew Minato. Better than most. I see him in you, though you have your mother's temperament. Gods help us all." "They're dead," Naruto said flatly. "Everyone's dead. My whole village. Destroyed by monsters in a single night." "I know." Jiraiya's voice held genuine regret. "I was tracking the demon band but arrived too late. I found only ashes, and your trail leading east. If you knew my parents, if you've been watching over me as she claimed, why didn't you ever reveal yourself?" Anger simmered beneath Naruto's question. "Why leave me alone all these years?" Jiraiya sighed heavily, suddenly appearing older. "Your parents had many enemies, human and otherwise. Anonymity was your best protection. I kept distance while ensuring your safety." He met Naruto's accusatory gaze. "I've killed 17 assassins that got too close to Konoha over the years." "You never knew because you never needed to know." The blunt statement stunned Naruto momentarily. Before he could respond, Jiraiya continued, "But protection is no longer possible. The demons have your scent, and Muzan Uchiha will never stop hunting the 9 tails. Now you need more than safety, you need power." "The fox's power," Naruto said quietly. "Yes and no." Jiraiya stood, towering over the boy. "The Kyuubi's power is immense but wild. Raw power alone won't save you, or anyone else. You need technique, control, purpose, and you'll teach me these things." "I'll try." Jiraiya's expression turned grave. "But understand this. What I offer isn't just training but a life sentence. Once you begin this path, there's no returning to normalcy. You'll become something new, neither fully human nor yokai, but something in between. A demon slayer." The term hung in the air between them, weighted with significance beyond Naruto's full comprehension. Yet something in it called to him, a purpose rising from the ashes of his former life. "When do we start?" he asked simply. Jiraiya's lips quirked upward. "We already have." With blinding speed, he drew and swung his massive sword. Naruto's body reacted instinctively, dodging with preternatural quickness that surprised even him. He rolled to his feet, heart hammering as Jiraiya nodded approvingly. "The fox enhances your reflexes. Good foundation, but not enough." He sheathed his blade. "Tonight you rest. Tomorrow, we beg. In forging you into something demons will learn to fear." 3 months of hellish training transformed Naruto from a village orphan into something else entirely. Each dawn began with meditation beneath the icy waterfall, teaching him to control his breathing while enduring extreme conditions. Days filled with relentless physical conditioning, running up mountain paths with boulders strapped to his back. Striking rock faces until his knuckles bled and healed and bled again, wielding progressively heavier practice swords until his arms trembled from exertion. Nights brought different lessons, ancient histories of demons and yokai, the lineage of his Uzumaki heritage, the fundamentals of sealing techniques that his mother had once mastered. Throughout it all, Jiraiya proved a harsh but fair teacher, pushing Naruto beyond perceived limits while carefully monitoring his progress. Again, the sage barked, circling Naruto who stood blindfolded in the training clearing, wooden practice sword held ready. Feel their approach through air currents. Anticipate, don't react. Small wooden projectiles launched from hidden mechanisms in the surrounding trees. Naruto deflected the first F5 with fluid movements but missed the sixth, which struck his shoulder with stinging force. Dead, Jiraiya pronounced flatly. A demon's attack would have removed your arm. I can't see them coming. Naruto protested, frustration evident. Precisely the point, his teacher replied unsympathetically. Demons move faster than human eyes can track. Rely on sight alone, and you're already defeated. Naruto tore off the blindfold. Blue eyes flashing with determination and something else, a momentary ring of red around his pupils. Then how? How am I supposed to fight what I can't even see? Jiraiya considered him thoughtfully. Perhaps it's time. He gestured for Naruto to sit beside him on a fallen log. The most fundamental difference between humans and demons is not physical but energetic. Demons convert human life force, what we call chakra, into power through consumption. By eating people, Naruto clarified grimly. Yes, but there exists another method of chakra manipulation that doesn't require such sacrifice. Jiraiya placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Your unique condition, housing the nine tails, gives you access to chakra reserves far beyond normal humans. The Chale-NGE isn't accessing power but controlling it. Through breathing, Naruto recalled the priestess's words. Exactly. Jiraiya nodded approvingly. All living creatures breathe, but few understand breathing's true potential. By synchronizing your breath with your heartbeat and circulation, you can direct chakra throughout your body, enhancing strength, speed, senses, even healing. He demonstrated, drawing a deep breath that visibly changed his presence. The air around him seemed to vibrate with potential energy. This is total concentration breathing, the foundation of all demon-slaying techniques. Master this, and even the fastest demon becomes visible to you. Their movements, previously blurs, slow enough for counter. Naruto watched with widening eyes as Jiraiya moved across the clearing at incredible speed. Seeming to flow rather than run, each movement precise and economical. When he returned, he wasn't even breathing hard. For most humans, developing this technique requires years of dedicated training. The sage continued, but you have an advantage. The nine tails' chakra naturally enhances your system. Find the breathing pattern that harmonizes your energy with the fox's, and you'll create something unprecedented. My own breathing style, Naruto murmured, understanding dawning. Potentially the first of many. Jiraiya's expression grew serious. But first, you must confront what dwells within you. That night, Jiraiya led Naruto deep into the mountain through hidden tunnels illuminated by phosphorescent fungi. They descended for what seemed like hours before emerging into a vast underground cavern. At its center stood a perfect circle of stone pillars etched with complex sealing formulas that glowed faintly blue in the darkness. What is this place? Naruto whispered, voice echoing slightly. A sacred site older than recorded history, Jiraiya replied. One of few locations where the barrier between our world and the spirit realm thins enough for communion. He directed Naruto to sit cross-legged in the circle's center while he moved methodically around the perimeter, activating seals with precise hand movements. As each seal illuminated, the air grew heavier. Charged with potential, I'm going to temporarily loosen the binding between you and the nine tails, Jiraiya explained. Not enough for escape, but sufficient for direct communication. Naruto swallowed nervously. Is that safe? No, his teacher answered honestly. But necessary. A forced coexistence never yields true strength. You must reach understanding with the fox spirit, not dominance. Not submission, but partnership. Before Naruto could protest further, Jiraiya completed the final seal. The circle blazed with blinding light, and Naruto felt himself falling inward. consciousness spiraling down into depths he hadn't known existed within himself. When his vision cleared, he stood in ankle-deep water within a vast chamber resembling a flooded temple. Massive pillars supported a ceiling lost in shadows, while before him stretched enormous bars forming a cage that extended beyond peripheral vision. On the central bar, a small paper talisman bearing the character for seal glowed with gentle persistence. Beyond those bars, darkness shifted and coalesced. Two enormous eyes opened, crimson with slitted pupils that contracted as they focused on him. A mouth followed, lined with teeth longer than Naruto was tall, curved in what might have been either snarl or smile. So the jailer finally visits his prisoner, rumbled a voice that Naruto felt rather than heard. Vibrating through his very essence. How disappointing. I expected someone more impressive. Despite terror threatening to overwhelm him, Naruto held his ground. You're the nine-tailed fox. Kyubi no Kitsune, the entity corrected, moving forward until moonlight illuminated its form, a massive fox with 9 sweeping tails that seemed to contain galaxies within their translucent orange energy. I had a name once, before humans reduced me to a number of appendages. What was it? Naruto asked, surprising both himself and apparently the fox, whose eyes widened fractionally. You are the first vessel to ask, it acknowledged after a moment. I am Kurama, eldest of the tailed beasts, children of the Sage of Six Paths. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he offered in return, bowing slightly. The fox's laughter shook the chamber. I know who you are, child. I have dwelled within you since your first breath. I have felt your hunger and pain, your rare joys and frequent sorrows. I know you better than any living being. Then you know why I'm here. You seek power, Kurama stated flatly. Like all humans. I seek survival, Naruto corrected. For myself and others. The demons that destroyed my village will kill more people unless they're stopped. And why should I care about human lives? The fox's tails lashed irritably. Your kind has hunted, imprisoned, and exploited my kin for centuries. Your own parents sealed me within you without consent. They were protecting you from Muzan, Naruto countered, remembering the priestess's words. From being corrupted into a demon. The massive entity went still, eyes narrowing. The Uchiha still lives, and pursues transformation. He sent demons to find me, to find you, Naruto confirmed. They destroyed everything, everyone. Unexpected tears sprang to his eyes as suppressed grief finally surfaced. The fox observed this display with unreadable expression. Curious, it finally rumbled. You mourn them, these villagers who shunned you, who whispered behind your back, who never truly accepted you as their own. They were still people, Naruto insisted, wiping his eyes roughly. No one deserves what happened to them. Silence stretched between them, broken only by water droplets falling from unseen heights. Perhaps, Kurama eventually conceded, we have a mutual enemy. Muzan Uchiha has long sought to corrupt natural energy itself, twisting yokai into demonic abominations that devour rather than maintain balance. Such corruptee threatens all existence, human and yokai alike. The fox's massive head lowered until one enormous eye was level with Naruto. I will consider aiding you, but not as slave to master. If we proceed, it must be as equals. I wouldn't know how to command you even if I wanted to, Naruto admitted. I'm offering partnership, your power, my purpose. Bold words from a child, Kurama observed, though without malice. Very well, I will share my power, gradually, as you prove capable of wielding it. Beginning with breath. The fox inhaled demonstratively, its massive chest expanding. As it did, energy swirled visibly through its form in spiral patterns, clockwise during inhalation, counterclockwise during exhalation. This is how chakra naturally flows, in spirals that mirror celestial movements. Humans have forgotten this fundamental truth, but Uzumaki blood remembers. Find this pattern within yourself, synchronize your breath with these spirals, and my power will respond. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward as Jiraiya had taught him. For the first time, he sensed energy moving through his body, not just blood and breath but something more ethereal. Following Kurama's guidance, he adjusted his breathing, seeking the spiral pattern. At first, Nothing changed. Then, gradually, he felt it, a resonance building between his natural rhythm and something deeper, more primal. His breath aligned with a pattern his conscious mind couldn't grasp but his body inherently recognized, as though remembering something long forgotten. When he opened his eyes, red-orange energy swirled around him, moving in perfect synchronization with his breath. It didn't feel foreign or invasive but like an extension of himself, power that had always been his, simply waiting for recognition. Kurama watched with something approaching approval. Spiral breathing, the foundation upon which all other breathing styles will build. Remember this feeling, this pattern. It is neither human nor yokai but something new, something that may yet stand against the coming darkness. The chamber began dissolving around them, signaling Naruto's return to consciousness. One last warning, partner. Kurama called as the bars between them faded. Muzan fears what we might become together. He will send his strongest servants to destroy you before you reach your potential. Be vigilant, be ruthless, or we both perish. Naruto's eyes snapped open to find himself still within the stone circle, though the seals had dimmed to faint outlines. Jiraiya knelt before him, expression concerned. You were gone longer than expected, the sage noted. Did you make contact? Yes. Naruto's voice sounded different to his own ears, deeper, more assured. His name is Kurama. Jiraiya's eyebrows rose. The fox told you its name. Extraordinary. In all recorded bindings, no tailed beast has willingly shared that information. He's agreed to help fight Muzan. Naruto rose smoothly, noting with surprise that his body felt lighter, more responsive. He showed me how to breathe with the spiral. Show me, Jiraiya commanded, stepping back. Naruto closed his eyes, finding the pattern came easily now that he recognized it. Inhale spiraling clockwise from center outward, exhale reversing the flow. As his breathing synchronized with this pattern, energy manifested visibly around him, not the chaotic, destructive aura that sometimes emerged in moments of danger, but controlled power moving in precise spirals that matched his breath. When he opened his eyes, Jiraiya was watching with undisguised amazement. Spiral breathing, the sage whispered. The theoretical foundation for all chakra manipulation, previously achievable only by sages after decades of training. Kurama says it's the beginning. Naruto replied, that other styles can build from this foundation. Indeed, Jiraiya's expression shifted to determination. But theory must become practical skill before it holds value. He drew his massive sword, the binding cloths unwrapping themselves as if alive. Now we truly begin your training as the first demon slayer. 6 months passed in relentless training. Naruto's mastery of spiral breathing evolved rapidly, allowing him to enhance physical attributes beyond human limitations. He could now run for days without rest, strike with enough force to shatter stone, and perceive movements too fast for normal vision to track. Jiraiya proved an exacting teacher, constantly pushing boundaries while imparting centuries of accumulated knowledge. He taught Naruto swordsmanship styles from across the continent, drilling forms until they became instinct rather than conscious technique. He instructed in the identification and exploitation of demon weaknesses, the recognition of yokai who might become allies, and the complex political landscape of human domains largely ignorant of supernatural threats. Throughout, Naruto's connection with Kurama deepened. What began as reluctant partnership evolved into mutual respect. The fox's vast knowledge of natural energy helped refine spiral breathing into something uniquely powerful, a technique that drew not just on Naruto's life force but on Kurama's seemingly limitless chakra reserves. On the 1-year anniversary of Konoha's destruction, Jiraiya led Naruto to a secluded mountain forge operate, led by a taciturn swordsmith named Totosai, a hunched, elderly man with bulging eyes who spoke rarely but worked metal with supernatural skill. The boy needs a proper blade, Jiraiya explained as they entered the sweltering workshop. Something that can channel his unique energy. Totosai circled Naruto with critical assessment, occasionally poking him with bony fingers or sniffing loudly. Finally, he nodded once. Unusual, human but not entirely. Give me your hand, boy. Naruto extended his right hand, which Totosai promptly sliced open with a small knife. As blood welled, the swordsmith collected it in a stone cup, then mixed in various powders from nearby containers. Hey, Naruto protested belatedly, the wound already healing. Nichiren blades must resonate with their wielders, Otosai explained in a voice like grinding stones. For you, standard methods won't suffice. Your blood carries two natures, human and fox. The sword must accept both. For 7 days and nights, they remained at the forge while Totosai worked without rest. The process involved techniques Naruto couldn't follow, metal folded countless times, quenched in mysterious solutions, inscribed with seals de Chi glowed through various color spectrums before fading into the blade's very structure. On the dawn of the 8th day, Totosai presented the finished weapon. It wasn't ostentatious or decorative like many samurai blades. Instead, it possessed elegant functionality, a slightly curved single-edged blade just under 3 feet long, the metal an unusual deep blue with subtle red undertones visible when light struck at certain angles. The Suba guard formed a simple spiral, while the hilt was wrapped in navy blue cord over white race skin. No ornate fittings or excessive details distracted from its lethal purpose. Benihime, Totosai named it, Crimson Princess, a blade of contradictions, like its wielder. When Naruto grasped the sword, it resonated immediately, humming in harmony with his chakra. Drawing it produced a distinctive sound, not the typical metallic ring but something closer to a deep musical note. The blade seemed to drink in available light rather than reflect it. Spiral. Breathing will activate its true nature, the swordsmith instructed. It will cut demons when ordinary blades cannot. But remember, the sword is only as effective as its wielder's resolve. Naruto bowed deeply in gratitude. I'll honor your craftsmanship, Master Totosai. The old man waved dismissively. Honor it by surviving. Not many will in the coming darkness. 1 week later, Naruto stood atop the mountain peak at sunset. Benihime strapped across his back. He'd changed significantly from the village boy of a year ago. Now 13, he'd grown taller and leaner, his body hardened by constant training. His once wild blonde hair was tied back in a short ponytail, while his whisker marks seemed more pronounced against sun-darkened skin. His clothing reflected his transformation, in Digo Hakama pants tucked into practical straw sandals, a black sleeveless kimono top layered under a burnt orange haori bearing spiral patterns on its back and sleeves. Forearm guards of lacquered bamboo protected his wrists while allowing free movement for swordplay. Jiraiya approached, carrying a small bundle. It's time. Naruto nodded, having sensed this moment approaching. You're not coming with me. Our paths diverge here, the sage confirmed. I must gather information about Muzen's movements and alert other potential allies. You must begin establishing yourself as a demon slayer, building experience. Refining your technique, creating your legend. My legend. Naruto raised an eyebrow skeptically. Never underestimate the power of reputation, Jiraiya advised seriously. Demons spread fear through stories. Fight back with your own narrative, become the monster that monsters fear. He handed Naruto the bundle, which contained provisions, maps, and a small leather-bound journal. Record your encounters, your techniques, your breathing styles, Jiraiya instructed. What you're creating is unprecedented, the foundation for those who will follow. Future demon slayers will study your methods. If I survive to create them, Naruto noted wryly. You'll survive. Jiraiya clasped his shoulder firmly. You're Minato and Kushina's son. Kurama's partner. My student. Survival is in your blood. The simple confidence in his teacher's voice bolstered Naruto's resolve. He bowed formally. Thank you for everything, Jiraiya-sensei. Thank me by staying alive. The sage's expression softened momentarily. We'll meet again when circumstances allow. Until then, trust your training, trust your instincts, and most importantly, trust your breathing. As the sun's final rays disappeared below the horizon, Naruto turned eastward where distant mountains beckoned. Reports of mysterious disappearances in mountain villages suggested demon activity, his first real test as a demon slayer. He took a deep breath, finding the spiral pattern that now came as naturally as heartbeat. Power surged through his system, enhancing senses until the night landscape became as clear as day. Sounds and scents carrying information ordinary humans could never perceive. Ready, partner. Kurama's voice rumbled within his mind. Ready, Naruto affirmed, both to the fox and himself. With one final glance at his teacher, he leapt from the mountain peak. not falling but seeming almost to fly as spiral breathing enhanced his movements beyond human limitation. His journey as the world's first demon slayer had begun. Behind him, Jiraiya watched his student vanish into the gathering darkness, a complex mixture of pride and concern etching his features. "The wheel turns again," he murmured to the indifferent stars. "Gods help us all if he fails." Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Butterfly's Wings. 5 years passed like rushing water, reshaping Naruto as surely as rivers carve canyons through stone. At 18, he bore little resemblance to the orphan who had fled Konoha's burning remains. His once unruly blonde hair now fell to his shoulders, typically secured in a half knot that kept it from his eyes during combat. The whisker marks on his cheeks had deepened into pronounced lines that seemed to glow faintly when he channeled Kurama's energy. His frame had filled out, not bulky but dense with lean muscle earned through countless battles. The indigo and orange of his distinctive attire had become known in villages across 3 provinces, a beacon of hope to those plagued by night terrors and mountain spirits that most refused to name as demons. Few connected this wandering swordsman with the rumors of a warrior who moved faster than sight, whose blades sang through the air with voices that weren't quite human, whose eyes sometimes burned crimson in the darkness. Dawn light filtered through ancient cedars as Naruto crouched beside a mountain stream, washing blood from his hands and face. Not his blood. The 3 demons he'd encountered in the forest had been relatively weak, barely requiring spiral breathing to dispatch. Still, their presence troubled him. His marked the 4th encounter in 2 weeks, each progressively closer to populated areas. "They're becoming bolder, Kurama observed within his mind, their communication now effortless after years of partnership. "Are desperate." "Desperate implies they're being driven," Naruto replied aloud, having long abandoned concerns about being perceived talking to himself. "But by what? By whom, you mean?" "The question answers itself." Naruto nodded grimly. 5 years of hunting had taught him demons operated with clear hierarchy. Lesser demons rarely acted without direction from stronger ones, who themselves answered to the 12 Kazuki, Muzen's elite generals. Increased activity inevitably preceded the appearance of a Kazuki member testing defenses or pursuing specific objectives. He dried his hands on his hakama and reached for Benihime, who rested against a nearby boulder. The sword had become an extension of himself, its blade never dulling, its edge capable of slicing Hero demon flesh that would shatter ordinary steel. The metal thrummed softly against his palm, almost purring, as he secured it across his back. Time to find Jiraiya, he decided, standing. If the pattern holds, something larger is coming. Tracking his former teacher was never straightforward. The sage moved constantly, gathering intelligence and maintaining a network of informants ranging from court nobles to brothel workers. Their rendezvous points changed frequently, arranged through coded messages left at predetermined locations. The latest had directed Naruto to Butterfly Mountain, where an ancient temple supposedly housed medical knowledge dating back centuries. According to Jiraiya's cryptic note, the temple contained information about toxins that might prove effective against higher-ranking demons, a potential edge they desperately needed. The journey took 3 days, leading him steadily higher into mountain ranges that marked the boundary between settled lands and the wild territories few travelers ventured through willingly. Game trails gave way to switchback paths barely wide enough for single-file travel, with sheer drops that promised death to the careless or unfortunate. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, he rounded a particularly treacherous bend to discover the path opening onto a plateau nestled between 3 peaks. There, impossibly balanced on had appeared from below to be a sheer cliff face, stood Kocho Temple, a sprawling complex of pagoda-roofed buildings connected by covered walkways, its main hall perched precisely at the plateau's center. Most remarkable was the profusion of life surrounding the temple. While the surrounding mountains remained largely barren at this altitude, the plateau flourished with carefully tended gardens. Medicinal herbs grew in concentric patterns around the complex, their carefully planned arrangement visible even from a distance. Flowering trees that had no business thriving at such heights created canopies of pink and white blossoms, beneath which white-robed figures moved with purposeful grace. As Naruto approached the main gate, an impressive red torii inscribed with protective sutras, 2 temple guardians stepped forward. Unlike the typical warrior monks he'd encountered at other religious sites, these guards were women, each armed with naginata spears held with evident proficiency. "State your business, traveler," the elder of the two commanded, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun, her posture betraying formal military training. "I seek knowledge about toxins effective against supernatural entities," Naruto replied honestly. Experience had taught him that half-truths often created more problems than direct approaches, especially with those already sensitized to the supernatural. The guards exchanged glances, something unspoken passing between them. Few acknowledge such entities exist, the younger guard noted cautiously, studying him with increased interest. Her gaze lingered on the sword across his back, then on the whisker marks on his cheeks. "Fewer still hunt them, yet hunted they must be," Naruto countered, "or what happened to Iwado village last month will be repeated elsewhere." This statement visibly startled them. The elder guard's expression hardened. "You have information about Iwado. I arrived too late to prevent the slaughter but tracked the responsible demons into the western forests. They won't harm anyone else." His matter-of-fact tone conveyed more than elaborate descriptions could have. After a moment's consideration, the elder guard nodded once. "The abbess will want to speak with you. Follow me." The younger guard remained at her post as Naruto was escorted through the main gate and into the temple grounds. Up close, the precision of the gardens became even more impressive. Plants arranged not just for aesthetic beauty but practical function, with warning species that would wilt in the presence of toxins planted strategically throughout. The sisters maintain the most comprehensive pharmacological knowledge in the eastern provinces, his guide explained as they walked. "Poisons and their antidotes have been our specialty since the temple's founding 3 centuries ago. An unusual focus for a Buddhist temple," Naruto observed. The woman's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "We find that understanding the substances that end life helps us better appreciate its sanctity." She glanced sideways at him. "Though I suspect you've developed your own philosophy on such matters." Before Naruto could respond, they rounded a corner into a courtyard dominated by an enormous wisteria tree. Its gnarled trunk supported branches that spread like a purple canopy across the entire space, creating dappled shadows that danced across stone pathways. Beneath this canopy, a woman knelt before a small shrine, her back to them as she arranged offerings with methodical precision. "Abbess, I've brug a visitor seeking knowledge of toxins for hunting," his escort announced, bowing deeply. The kneeling woman finished her arrangement before responding. "Thank you, Momoko. You may return to your duties." As the guard retreated, the abbess rose with fluid grace and turned to face Naruto. She was older than he had expected, perhaps 60, with elegant silver-streaked black hair arranged in a calm plex knot and piercing eyes that assessed him with clinical detachment. "I am Abbess Aoi, 23rd head of Kocho Temple," she introduced herself with a slight bow. "And you are the one they call the Spiral Hunter." Naruto couldn't hide his surprise. The name was used in remote villages where he'd slain demons, but he hadn't expected it to reach this isolated temple. "Word travels quickly in certain circles," Aoi explained, correctly interpreting his expression. "Those who monitor supernatural disturbances maintain communication networks older than the imperial court itself. Your activities have not gone unnoticed. I'm known as Naruto Uzumaki," he offered, returning her bow. "Uzumaki," she repeated, a flicker of recognition crossing her features. "The Whirlpool clan. That explains much about your methods." She gestured for him to follow her deeper into the temple grounds. "You seek toxins effective against Oni. May I ask why you believe our temple possesses such knowledge?" "Information from a reliable source," Naruto replied. "A sage named Jiraiya." The abbess's step faltered momentarily before she continued walking. "The Toad Sage has not visited these mountains in nearly a decade. His appearance now suggests troubles beyond isolated demon encounters. The frequency and organization of attacks has increased across all provinces," Naruto confirmed. "We believe Uzan Uchiha is mobilizing for something larger." Aoi stopped beneath a cherry tree in full bloom, her expression grave. "Then what I feared has come to pass. Come, there is someone you should meet." The abbess led him to a secluded building separated from the main temple complex by a carefully maintained rock garden. Unlike the other structures with their ornate Buddhist aesthetics, this bui LDING featured a more austere design that reminded Naruto of scientific facilities he'd encountered in larger cities. Inside, the contrast became more pronounced. Traditional paper screens gave way to walls lined with shelves containing countless jars, bottles, and containers labeled in precise calligraphy. Worktables held mortars, scales, distillation equipment, and other tools of pharmaceutical craft. The air carried a complex mixture of scents, some pleasantly herbal, others sharply medicinal, a few disturbingly acrid. At the room's center, a young woman worked with intense concentration, grinding something in a stone mortar while consulting an open scroll beside her. She didn't look up at their entrance, completely absorbed in precisely counting each grinding motion. 98, 99, 100. She murmured before carefully transferring the powder to a waiting container. Only then did she acknowledge their presence, turning with a fluid motion that suggested Teal training beneath her scholarly appearance. Naruto's first impression was of striking contrasts. She appeared perhaps 20, with an elegantly petite frame that belied the strength evident in her posture. Her hair fell in an asymmetrical bob, deep purple-black that caught the light with almost iridescent sheen. Most remarkable were her eyes, large and expressive, yet containing a sharpness that seemed to dissect everything they observed. "Abbess," she greeted with a respectful bow before turning curious eyes to Naruto. "I wasn't aware we were expecting visitors. Shinobu, this is Naruto Uzumaki. He's here regarding our research on Oni toxicology." Aoi's formal tone shifted subtly, conveying unspoken significance. The young woman's expression transformed instantly, warmth replaced by guarded assessment. "Is he now? And what qualifies a wandering swordsman to discuss such specialized research?" Her dismissive tone sparked immediate annoyance in Naruto, but years of battle discipline kept his expression neutral. "First-hand experience with over 70 different demon variants across 8 provinces," he replied evenly. "Including 3 of the 12 Kazuki, though I've only managed to kill lower-ranked members." Shinobu's eyebrows rose fractionally, the only indication his response had surprised her. 70 variants, you say? Categorized by what taxonomy? Physical characteristics, regenerative capabilities, toxin susceptibility. By breathing styles required to defeat them, Naruto answered, meeting her challenging gaze directly. "Breathing styles," she echoed, genuine curiosity momentarily displacing skepticism. The abbess intervened with practiced diplomacy. "Shinobu Kocho is our head pharmacologist and foremost expert on supernatural physiology. If anyone can provide the information you seek, it's her." She turned to the younger woman. "Naruto comes on Jiraiya's recommendation." This information visibly shifted Shinobu's assessment. "The Toad Sage sent you. That contextualizes matters." She bowed with more genuine respect. "Forgive my initial reception. We've had unfortunate experiences with self-proclaimed demon hunters seeking magical salute. Ions rather than scientific understanding." "No forgiveness needed," Naruto replied. "Skepticism keeps people alive in our line of work." Shinobu's lips curved in a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Indeed it does. Now, perhaps you could elaborate on these breathing styles, while I continue my work." Multitasking is something of a specialty. As she returned to her mortar and herbs, Naruto explained the fundamentals of spiral breathing, how synchronized respiration patterns enhanced human capabilities beyond normal limitations, allowing practitioners to perceive and counter demon movements that ordinary humans couldn't even see. Shinobu listened while continuing her methodical preparation, occasionally asking incisive questions that revealed surprising knowledge of human physiology and energy systems. Her skepticism gradually transformed into scientific curiosity as Naruto described the quantifiable effects of different breathing patterns. "Fascinating," she finally commented, setting aside her completed mixture. "You're essentially describing a method of consciously manipulating autonomic nervous functions through respiratory control. The applications beyond combat could revolutionize medicine itself." "I hadn't considered that aspect," Naruto admitted. "My focus has been rather specialized." "Narrowly focused," she corrected with unexpected sharpness. "A warrior's limitation. You develop weapons without considering their broader implications." Before Naruto could defend himself, the abbess interjected smoothly. "Perhaps a demonstration would clarify matters." "Shinobu, the Western Garden requires inspection before sunset. Understanding passed between the women. Shinobu nodded, removing her laboratory apron and reaching for a sword that had been propped discreetly in the corner, a thin-bladed weapon with a distinctive tsuba shaped like a butterfly. Very well, Mr. Uzumaki, would you care to assist me with the garden inspection? The Western Garden proved to be a secluded training ground hidden behind a bamboo grove. Unlike the meticulously maintained meditation gardens elsewhere in the temple, this space showed signs of intensive use. Actions of earth packed hard from repeated footwork, wooden posts scarred by blade strikes, stone targets chipped from impact. The abbess prefers we maintain certain appearances, Shinobu explained as she led him into the clearing. Scholarly sisters dedicated to healing and spiritual enlightenment rather than warrior women preparing for battle. The temple guards suggested otherwise, Naruto noted. What visitors see and what exists are often different things. She turned to face him, unsheathing her blade with practiced precision. Now, show me this spiral breathing. No theatrics or mysticism, just the measurable effects. Naruto nodded, appreciating her direct approach despite her occasionally abrasive manner. He drew Benihime, the sword humming softly as it caught afternoon light. Interesting harmonics in the metal, Shinobu observed. Specialized alloy, something like that, he confirmed before settling into a ready stance. Without further preamble, he initiated spiral breathing, inhaling deeply as he visualized energy cycling clockwise through his system, exhaling as the flow reversed. The effect was immediate and visible. A subtle red-orange aura manifested around his body, and the air around him seemed to vibrate with potential energy. Shinobu's eyes widened fractionally. She approached, clinical interest overriding caution as she circled him, observing from different angles. Remarkable, she murmured. Your body temperature has increased 2 degrees, pupillary response has sharpened, and muscle fiber tension has visibly altered. She stopped directly before him, studying his face with uncomfortable intensity. And your facial markings are more pronounced, almost luminescent. Side effect of my particular condition, Naruto explained. The 9 Tai LS's chakra manifests visibly when channeled. Her expression sharpened with immediate recognition. You're a Jinchuriki. It wasn't a question. The QB vessel. That explains much about your survey. Val against opponents that would kill ordinary humans. Naruto tensed, unused to anyone recognizing his status so readily. Most people knew only folklore about tailed beasts, not the reality of human vessels. Sensing his discomfort, Shinobu stepped back, her manner softening slightly. The temple archives contain extensive records on yokai classifications, including biju and their containers. Your condition isn't unprecedented, merely rare, and not something I advertise, he noted carefully. Understandable, she acknowledged. Now, these enhanced capabilities, how do they translate to combat application? Instead of explaining, Naruto demonstrated. Without warning, he moved, not at full speed, but significantly faster than human norm. In 3 heartbeats, he had circled the entire training ground, sliced through 5 bamboo stalks at precisely the same angle, and returned to his starting position. Shinobu's composed demeanor cracked momentarily, genuine amazement replacing scientific detachment. That was basic application, he interrupted with a hint of satisfaction at finally impressing her. Speed, strength, and sensory enhancement. The true power comes in specialized breathing patterns that create specific effects. Water breathing for flowing, continuous attacks. Stone breathing for unstoppable direct force. Thunder breathing for instantaneous strikes. You've created multiple variations, 7 major styles so far, each with specific forms designed to counter different demon types. He sheathed Benihime, allowing the visible manifestation of chakra to fade. But we've hit limitations. Physical enhancement only goes so far against demons with specialized abilities, particularly toxin-based ones. Understanding dawned in Shinobu's expression. That's why you're here. You need countermeasures against poisonous demons. Exactly. Recent encounters suggest Muzan is deploying venom-type demons specifically because they're effective against human hunters. Even with enhanced physiology, toxins that attack the nervous system can neutralize breathing techniques before they're fully deployed. For the first time, Shinobu's clinical detachment completely dissolved. Replaced by an emotion Naruto couldn't immediately identify, something between determination and deeply personal anger. "Come with me," she said abruptly. "There's something you need to see." Shinobu led him to a secluded shrine at the temple's northernmost edge, where stone steps descended into what appeared to be a small cave entrance. As they approached, Naruto noticed active sutras inscribed around the opening, along with warning symbols he recognized from other sacred sites. "This area is restricted to most temple residents," she explained, producing a small key for the metal gate barring entry. "Only the abbess and I maintain what lies within." The gate opened with a protesting creak, revealing a short passageway that opened into a surprisingly large chamber carved directly into the mountain. Unlike the damp, musty environment Naruto expected, the space was dry and well ventilated through some clever engineering he couldn't immediately discern. Lanterns ignited automatically as they entered, another mechanical innovation rather than magic, illuminating walls covered with detailed anatomical drawings. These weren't human anatomies, however. The proportions were wrong, the internal structures alien. With dawning comprehension, Naruto realized he was looking at meticulously documented demon physiologies. At the chamber's center stood a large stone table with drainage channels carved into its surface. Nearby cabinets contained surgical tools, collection vials, and documentation materials. The implications were obvious. "You've been dissecting demons," he stated, unable to keep surprise from his voice. "Studying them," Shinobu corrected, running her fingers along one particularly detailed illustration. "Understanding one's enemy is the first step toward defeating them. But demons dissolve after death. How did you?" "Specialized preservation techniques," she interrupted, opening a cabinet to reveal rows of glass containers. Each held suspended tissue samples, some recognizably organ-like, others more ambiguous. The abbess developed a method for temporarily stabilizing demon cells post-mortem. Naruto examined the specimens with newfound respect for the temple's research. "This is unprecedented. Even Jiraiya hasn't managed stable preservation. The Toad Sage has many talents, but patience for methodical documentation isn't among them." Shinobu noted with a hint of amusement. She hesitated before continuing. "What I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room. The knowledge itself could be dangerous in the wrong hands." She approached a sealed door at the chamber's rear, placing her palm against a complex mechanism that responded with a series of clicks. The door swung inward, revealing a smaller room dominated by a glass case. Inside, suspended in clear fluid, floated what appeared to be a complete demon heart, still intact despite separation from its body. "Impossible," Naruto breathed, approaching cautiously. "Demon organs can't survive independently. The connection to Muzen's blood is what maintains their existence." "Correct. Under normal circumstances." Shinobu's voice held subdued pride. "This specimen comes from a demon I encountered 3 years ago. Its regenerative capabilities were exceptional, allowing cell viability even after complete separation from the primary nervous system." She tapped the glass with a fingernail, causing the heart to pulse once in response. "Still alive, still reactive. More importantly, it provides a testing medium for toxin development. Compounds that affect this tissue will affect living demons proportionally." The scientific achievement was remarkable, but a more pressing question emerged in Naruto's mind. "You said you encountered this demon. You didn't say temple guards killed it." Shinobu's expression closed like a shutter falling. "No, I killed it myself." She turned away, busying herself with nearby instruments. "The demon responsible for my family's deaths." The simple statement carried devastating weight. Naruto remained silent, recognizing the familiar contours of grief and vengeance that had shaped his own journey. After a moment, Shinobu continued with forced clinical detachment. "My sister and I were the only survivors of our family's slaughter. She died protecting me from the demon that did this." Her hand ghosted over a scar visible at her collarbone. "I've dedicated my life to developing a poison capable of destroying demons as efficiently as they destroy us." "And have you succeeded?" Naruto asked quietly. "Partially." She gestured toward another cabinet containing vials of variously colored liquids. "I've developed compounds that interfere with demon regeneration, others that temporarily paralyze their nervous systems. Several that cause cellular degradation similar to sunlight exposure. But nothing yet delivers the comprehensive destruction I seek." Her frustration was palpable, the scientist reaching the limits of current knowledge. The survivor still seeking closure through her craft. Perhaps, Naruto suggested carefully, the solution isn't a single poison but a delivery system. A method that introduces the toxin directly to the demon's core at concentrations they can't adapt to. Shinobu considered this, analytical mind visibly processing possibilities. Direct cardiac delivery would maximize effect. But the difficulty lies in penetration. Demon skin repels most projectiles, and their regeneration counters standard blade wounds before toxins can circulate effectively. Unless, Naruto continued, an idea forming. The delivery itself incorporates spiral breathing principles. A blade technique specifically designed to channel both physical force and toxin simultaneously. Their eyes met in mutual recognition of a potential breakthrough. For the first time, Shinobu's smile reached her eyes, transforming her face from merely pretty to genuinely beautiful. A breathing style based on insect predation models. She elaborated, excitement building in her voice. Precise, targeted strikes that inject venom directly into vital systems, like a wasp paralyzing its prey, or a butterfly proboscis extracting nectar. Insect breathing, Naruto named it, feeling the concept resonate with possibilities. But it would require specialized training to develop the necessary precision. Fortunately, Shinobu replied with newfound warmth, precision is my specialty. The next morning found them in the western training ground at dawn, frost still clinging to bamboo stalks as the first golden light spilled over mountain peaks. Shinobu arrived dressed not in her laboratory clothing but in a modified training uniform that allowed unrestricted movement while maintaining modesty. Arc purple hakama paired with a fitted indigo jacket embroidered with subtle butterfly patterns. Her sword, which she called Kaorino, was a specialized design Naruto hadn't encountered before. Thinner than standard Nihonto, its blade tapered to an exceptionally fine point optimized for penetration rather than slashing. The Tsuba's butterfly shape wasn't merely decorative but engineered to direct force along the blade's central axis, maximizing thrust potential. My sister designed it, Shinobu explained, noticing his interest. She believed that physical disadvantages could be overcome through specialized equipment and perfect technique rather than brute strength. Wise perspective, Naruto agreed. The strongest demons I've encountered weren't defeated through power matching but strategic exploitation of weaknesses. They began with fundamental breathing exercises, Naruto demonstrating the spiral breathing pattern while Shinobu analyzed its effects on her own physiology. Her scientific mind proved both asset and obstacle, questioning mechanisms that Naruto had learned through intuition rather than explicit instruction. You're overthinking it, he finally said after her third successful attempt to manifest visible energy. Breathing isn't just mechanical. It's connecting your conscious mind to autonomic functions that usually operate below awareness. That's physiologically imprecise, she countered with evident frustration. Respiration involves specific muscle groups and gas exchange processes. There must be quantifiable mechanisms underlying these effects. Naru, to consider this before trying a different approach. When you develop a new poison, do you rely solely on existing formulas? Of course not. Innovation requires experimental thinking beyond established parameters. Then approach this the same way, he suggested. Instead of trying to replicate my exact pattern, find the rhythm that resonates with your own energy signature. Shinobu's expression indicated skepticism, but she closed her eyes and attempted again, this time focusing inward rather than on external metrics. Her breathing gradually shifted, finding a pattern distinct from Naruto's spirals but equally effective. Where his energy moved in broad, powerful rotations, hers flickered and darted like insects in flight. Quick, precise movements that required less power but achieved greater accuracy. When her eyes opened, a faint lavender aura shimmered around her form, subtle but undeniably present. Fascinating, she breathed, examining her own hands as energy coursed visibly beneath her skin. The subjective experience is difficult to quantify. Enhanced sensory input, accelerated cognitive processing, increased proprioceptive awareness. How does it feel? Naruto asked, smiling at her characteristic analytical response. Shinobu paused, considering the question more deeply. Alive, she finally answered with surprising vulnerability. More alive than I've felt since before my family died. The simple admission created a moment of connection between them, shared understanding of loss and purpose that transcended their different approaches. Naruto recognized something in Shinobu that mirrored his own journey, the transformation of personal tragedy into focused mission. Their training intensified over subsequent days, with Shinobu rapidly adapting Spiral B breathing fundamentals into something uniquely her own. Her background in anatomy and poison craft translated perfectly to developing precision strikes targeting specific anatomical weaknesses in demon physiology. Where traditional swordsmanship emphasized cutting power, insect breathing focused on penetration and injection, using the blade as delivery system for toxins developed in her laboratory. Together they created specialized forms mimicking different insect hunting strategies: butterfly's dance for flowing, continuous strikes, bee sting for direct penetration of vital points, spider's wee bee for movement restriction followed by precise finishing blows. On their 7th day of training, Jiraiya finally arrived at the temple, looking characteristically disheveled from travel but carrying an air of urgency that immediately put Naruto on alert. Reports from coastal villages suggest increased demon activity moving inland, the sage reported as they gathered in the abbess's private study. Coordinated patterns indicating direction from higher authority. Muzan, Naruto asked. Possibly, or one of the upper Kazuki acting on his behalf. Jiraiya unfolded a map across the table, indicating movement patterns with quick brush strokes. They appear to be searching for something, or someone. His meaningful glance toward Naruto conveyed unspoken concern about the Nine Tails. The temple's protective barriers have held for centuries, Abbess Aoi noted, though concern lined her features. But they were designed for spiritual entities, not physical demons with Muzan's blood empowering them. We should prepare for potential attack, Shinobu stated flatly. If movement patterns continue along this trajectory, they'll reach our mountain within days. Jiraiya nodded agreement. I've sent messages to allies in neighboring provinces, but assistance would arrive too late if demons launch a concentrated assault. Then we defend with what we have, Naruto decided. And possible, why test insect breathing under actual combat conditions sooner than planned? Shinobu met his eyes with calm determination. My toxins are ready. The delivery system needs refinement, but theory suggests effectiveness against mid-rank demons at minimum. Theory becomes practice eventually, Jiraiya observed with grim humor. Usually at the most inconvenient moment possible. That moment arrived sooner than any of them anticipated. Shortly after midnight, temple warning bells shattered the mountain silence. Naruto was instantly alert, Benihime in hand before he'd fully registered awakening. Kurama's presence surged within his consciousness, the fox's senses extending beyond human limitations. Multiple entities approaching from the southwest, ***, the Biju reported. At least 7 distinct signatures, one significantly stronger than the others. Naruto dressed rapidly, securing his sword across his back as he moved toward the temple's southern entrance where guards were already assembling. He found Shinobu already there, calmly directing defensive preparations while mixing something in a small container hung at her waist. Final adjustments to the wisteria compound. She explained without looking up from her work. If my calculations are correct, this concentration should temporarily inhibit regeneration around wound sites. And if your calculations are incorrect? Naruto asked, impressed by her composure despite the impending danger. She finally glanced up, a hint of dark humor in her eyes. Then we discover valuable data through field testing, albeit potentially at fatal cost. Jiraiya joined them moments later, his usual casual demeanor replaced by the focused intensity of a veteran warrior. Perimeter scouts report demons have already breached the outer shrine area. They're moving with purpose, not random destruction. Searching, Naruto concluded. But for what? Questions for survivors, the sage replied grimly. For now, we have temple residents to protect. The abbess approached, no longer the serene spiritual leader but a commanding general. All non-combatants have been moved to the inner sanctuary. Protective sutras are activated, but they won't hold against determined assault for long. A distant scream cut through the night, followed by an inhuman roar that echoed between mountain peaks. The first line of defense had fallen. Positions, Aoi commanded. The remaining guards, 20 experienced warriors, formed a defensive line before the main temple gate. Shinobu moved to join them, but Naruto caught her arm. Stay close to me, he said quietly. Insect breathing is untested in actual combat. We should coordinate until you're comfortable with battlefield application. She seemed prepared to argue but nodded after brief consideration. Logical assessment. First, combat deployment should be conducted under controlled conditions when possible. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at their exchange but said nothing. Tacky. In position at the defensive line's center. His massive sword remained sheathed, but his hands formed a series of ritual gestures that caused protective symbols to illuminate around the temple perimeter. They didn't wait long. Shadows detached from the tree line, moving with unnatural speed toward the temple grounds. As moonlight touched them, their inhuman nature became evident: elongated limbs, distorted facial features, mouths that extended far beyond normal human proportion. Standard hunting formation, Naruto observed, recognizing the tactical approach. Weaker demons flush out targets for stronger ones to capture or kill. The first wave reached the defensive line in seconds. Temple guards engaged with practiced coordination, their weapons gleaming with blessed oils that caused demon flesh to sizzle on contact. Despite their training, however, the supernatural speed and strength of their opponents quickly created casualties. Naruto drew Benihime, the sword's distinctive hum cutting through battle noise. "Ready?" he asked Shinobu, who had coated her blade with the wisteria compound. "Theoretically," she replied with surprising equanimity given the circumstances. They moved into the fray together, Naruto initiating spiral breathing as Shinobu matched with her insect pattern variation. The effect was immediate and visible, orange-red energy surrounding him while her lav Ender aura flickered like wings in flight. The first demon to face them resembled a grotesquely elongated human with spider-like additional limbs sprouting from its torso. It launched itself forward, with blinding speed, only to meet Benihime's edge as Naruto executed water-breathing, second form, flowing river cut. The blade cleaved through demon flesh with almost no resistance, separating its upper body from lower in a single fluid motion. Before the creature could regenerate, Shinobu struck, her thin blade piercing precisely where the demon's heart would be located. Insect breathing. First form, butterfly's sting, she announced as her wisteria compound injected directly into the wound channel. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Instead of the standard regeneration Naruto had observed countless times, the demon's flesh around the wound site turned purple-black, the discoloration spreading outward through visible veins. It thrashed briefly before dissolving into ash, the complete destruction usually achieved only through decapitation or sunlight exposure. Shinobu's eyes widened in scientific delight even amidst the battle chaos. Complete cellular disruption. The compound exceeded theoretical effectiveness by approximately 22%. Less calculation, more application, Naruto suggested as three more demons converged on their position. What followed was a deadly dance of complementary styles. Where Naruto's spiral breathing created broad, powerful attacks that disrupted demon formations, Shinobu's insect breathing delivered precision strikes that prevented regeneration. Together they cut through the demon vanguard with methodical efficiency, protecting temple guards and creating space for Jiraiya's more elaborate techniques. The sage fought with the casual mastery of decades of experience, his massive blade seeming to defy physics as it executed complex patterns that sliced through multiple opponents simultaneously. More impressive were the sealing techniques he incorporated between sword strikes, paper talismans that erupted into binding chains or explosive force when they contacted demon flesh. For a brief, hopeful moment, it appeared they might repel the attack without significant losses. Then a palpable shift in atmosphere announced a new arrival, a presence so heavy with malevolent energy that even non-sensitive humans felt its approach. Demons attacking the temple suddenly disengaged, retreating to form a perimeter around a figure emerging from the forest darkness. Unlike the monstrous appearances of lesser demons, this newcomer maintained almost human appearance, a tall, elegantly proportioned woman in a crimson kimono decorated with spider lily patterns. Only her eyes betrayed her nature, completely black except for pale blue irises that seemed to glow from within. "Upper Kazuki," Jiraiya murmured, voice tight with recognition. "Benio of the Spider Lily. Poison Mistress of the 12. The demon woman smiled, revealing teeth too perfect to be human. "The legendary Toad Sage remembers me. I'm flattered." Her voice carried like honey over broken glass, sweet yet fundamentally wrong. though I expected the famous spiral hunter to be more impressive. Her gaze fixed on Naruto with unsettling intensity. So much effort to find one boy. Lord Muzan must see something valuable in you, or in what you contain. She knows about me, Kurama growled within Naruto's mind. This is no random encounter. What do you want? Naruto demanded, maintaining spiral breathing as he assessed potential attack vectors. Benio's smile widened unnaturally, initially, to extend Lord Muzan's invitation to join our ranks. Your abilities are unusual, valuable. The transformation would enhance them beyond your imagining. Become a demon. Naruto couldn't keep disgust from his voice. Become like you. Become evolved, she corrected, circling slowly as lesser demons maintained their perimeter. Though I now see you. Vei complicated matters by developing interesting techniques. Her gaze shifted to Shinobu, assessing the younger woman with cold calculation. Toxin delivery through respiratory enhancement. Quite innovative, almost familiar. Something in her tone caused Shinobu to stiffen beside him. Familiar how? She demanded. Benio's expression shifted to mock sympathy. Oh my, she doesn't know. She addressed Naruto directly. Your new friend's sister developed similar methods before her unfortunate consumption. Delicious girl. Her knowledge of poisons made her blood particularly complex in flavor. The revelation struck Shinobu like physical blow. You, she whispered, color draining from her face. You killed Kanae. Among many others, Benio acknowledged with casual cruelty. Though few provided such useful information before dying. Her research notes proved particularly valuable in developing my own toxins. The demon extended one perfectly manicured hand, from which liquid sudden L.Y. dripped, a viscous purple substance that sizzled when it contacted stone. Would you like to see what I've created with your sister's stolen knowledge? What happened next occurred too quickly for most observers to follow. Shinobu launched herself forward with reckless abandon, insect breathing flaring around her blade as she aimed directly for the demon's heart. Simultaneously, Benio flicked her wrist, sending poison droplets arcing through the air toward both Shinobu and nearby temple guards. Naruto reacted instinctively, spiral breathing accelerating his movements beyond normal human perception. He intercepted Shinobu mid-charge, pulling her aside as Jiraiya deployed a protective barrier that neutralized the airborne toxin before it could reach defenders. Release me, Shinobu hissed, struggling against his restraint with surprising strength. She killed Kanae, she stole her research, and she'll kill you too if you attack without strategy, Naruto countered, maintaining his grip despite her efforts. Upper Kazuki aren't defeated through frontal assault. Benio observed their exchange with evident amusement. Such passion. Perhaps I should take both of you to Lord Muzan. The sister who developed the technique and the boy who refined it into something new. What a matched set you'd make as demons. Jiraiya stepped forward, his expression deadly serious. Neither will be going anywhere with you, Benio. You've made a critical error coming here personally. The demon laughed, a sound like shattering crystal. Have I, or have I correctly assessed that none of you can actually defeat me? She gestured dismissively. Your sealing techniques are formidable, sage, but my poison reaches places your barriers cannot. As if to demonstrate, she exhaled a faintly visible purple mist that immediately began corroding stone where it touched. Temple guards retreated involuntarily, recognizing lethal threat. You see, even experienced warriors recognize death when it approaches. Benio's confidence was absolute. Now, I'll offer once more. Come willingly, and your temple friends survive this night. Resist, and I'll demonstrate exactly why Lord Muzan appointed me Poison Master of the 12. Naruto felt Shinobu trembling beside him, not with fear but with barely contained rage. He could sympathize. The demon's casual cruelty regarding her sister's death would provoke anyone to emotional response. But emotion alone wouldn't defeat an Upper Kazuki. Shinobu, he murmured, pitching his voice for her ears alone. Remember the butterfly's approach. Not direct confrontation but strategic positioning. Something in his words penetrated her fury. Her breathing gradually stabilized as she visibly wrestled control over her emotions. When she met his eyes, hers were clear and focused once more. Insect breathing. Second form, she whispered. Compound approach. He nodded understanding. It was one of the forms they'd theorized but not yet implemented, a multi-street Age attack requiring perfect coordination between two practitioners. Jiraiya, Naruto called without taking his eyes from Benio. We need 30 seconds of containment. The sage nodded almost imperceptibly. Consider it done. His hands moved in complex patterns as he muttered incantations under his breath. Benio's expression shifted from amusement to wariness. Whatever you're planning won't. She never finished the sentence. The ground beneath her erupted in glowing seals that expanded outward, creating a dome of pulsing energy that temporarily contained both her and her lesser demon attendants. 29 seconds. Jiraiya announced, sweat beading on his forehead from maintaining the high-level technique. Make them count. Naruto and Shinobu moved to opposite sides of the containment field, each initiating their respective breathing styles with heightened intensity. Where before their energies had manifested as separate auras, now they began resonating in visible harmony. Orange, red and lavender energies intertwining in the air between them. Spiral breathing. Cyclone form. Naruto intoned, Benihin's blade gleaming with concentrated chakra. Insect breathing. Butterfly dance, Shinobu responded. Her blade coated with wisteria compound now glowing with added energy. As Jiraiya's containment began weakening, they struck simultaneously, not directly at Benio but at specific points around the barrier's perimeter. Their blades never touched the demon herself but instead created a complex pattern of energy that converged from multiple vectors. What is this? Benio demanded, her composure cracking as she sensed unfamiliar technique. What are you? The containment field collapsed entirely, but instead of freeing the demon, it imploded, drawing the swirling energy pattern directly into her body. Where spiral breathing created the delivery system, a vortex that bypassed physical defenses, insect breathing provided the payload, concentrated wisteria poison inji. CTED directly into the demon's core through energy rather than physical penetration. Benio's scream echoed across the mountain as purple-black veins erupted across her seemingly perfect skin. Her body convulsed, caught between regeneration and toxic degradation as competing forces warred within her system. Impossible, she gasped, staggering backward. No human technique can. Not human alone, Naruto corrected, maintaining focus as he prepared for potential counterattack. Partnership between human and yokai creates something new, something your master fears. The demon's beautiful face contorted with rage and pain. This changes nothing. Lord Muzan will. Her statement ended abruptly as her body suddenly liquefied, collapsing into a puddle of corrupted matter that quickly evaporated into noxious smoke. Around them, the lesser demons wailed in sympathetic agony before dissolving similarly, their existence tied to their mistress through Muzan's blood. As the last demon remains dissipated, silence fell across the temple grounds. Defenders stood in shocked disbelief at witnessing an Upper Kazuki's destruction, something many had thought impossible. Shinobu stared at the empty space where Benio had stood, her expression unreadable as she slowly sheathed her sword. Sister, she whispered, so quietly Naruto barely caught it. I hope you saw. Jiraiya approached them, exhaust. Ion evident in his movements but pride clear in his expression. What you just created, he said seriously, changes everything we thought we knew about fighting demons. Combined breathing, Naruto named it, the concept crystallizing as he spoke. Different styles synchronized for enhanced effect. More than that, Shinobu added, scientific mind already analyzing their success. Complementary approaches addressing different aspects of demon physiology simultaneously. The theoretical applications are vast. The abbess joined them, looking shaken but resolute. The temple has stood for centuries without direct confrontation with an Upper Kazuki. That this happened now, targeted specifically toward you two, suggests larger significance. Muzan fears what we're creating, Jiraiya confirmed. Breathing styles represent something he can't easily counter. Human techniques that don't rely on strength alone but on specialized application of natural energy. Then we develop more styles, Naruto decided. The path ahead suddenly clear. Not just spiral and insect, but diverse approaches targeting different demon vulnerabilities. Shinobu nodded agreement, her grief temporarily channeled into determined purpose. The temple archives might contain relevant information. Historical texts sometimes reference specialized breathing techniques used by various warrior traditions. Indeed they do, the abbess confirmed. Including several scrolls one believe you should examine immediately. She gestured for them to follow her toward the main temple building. Ancient texts predating the temple itself, preserved by my predecessors for a time they believed would eventually come. Dawn found them in the temple's innermost archive, a climate-controlled chamber where the old saint and most valuable texts were preserved. The abbess had granted them access to scrolls typically restricted to senior temple leadership, many written in archaic scripts requiring specialized knowledge to decipher. Shinobu proved invaluable in this regard, her scholarly background including extensive language training. She worked methodically through the most promising documents while Naruto and Jiraiya focused on texts containing practical applications rather than theoretical foundations. Listen to this, Shinobu called, excitement evident as she carefully unrolled a particularly ancient scroll. According to this account from the Heian period, a warrior monk named Yorichi developed a breathing technique that moved like dancing flames, consuming demons as fire consumes paper. Could this be describing another breathing style? Flame breathing, Naruto suggested, the concept immediately resonating. Aggressive, consumption-based techniques emphasizing overwhelming force. And here, Jiraiya added from his own research, references to warriors who struck like lightning from clear sky, or float around obstacles like water seeking lowest path. Thunder breathing and water breathing, Naruto confirmed. I've developed rudimentary forms of both, but these accounts suggest far more elaborate applications. The abbess watched their excited exchanges with quiet satisfaction. These records were preserved for generations, waiting for those who could properly interpret and apply them. Perhaps you are those individuals. As morning light strengthened, temple staff brought food and tea to sustain their research. Shinobu worked with singular focus, occasionally making notes in her precise handwriting or sketching diagrams based on textual descriptions. Despite the previous night's emotional revelations and physical combat, she showed no signs of fatigue, driven by purpose that transcended personal limits. Naruto found himself increasingly impressed by her resilience and intellect. Where his own approach to breathing styles had been largely intuitive, developed through trial and error in actual combat, she brought systematic analysis that identified underlying principles he'd never consciously articulated. These accounts consistently reference natural elements as foundations for different breathing patterns, she noted, organizing their findings into categories. Fire, water, thunder, stone, wind, each representing different approaches to energy manipulation. Makes sense, Naruto acknowledged. Natural elements provide conceptual frameworks that humans can visualize and internalize. My spiral breathing builds on whirlpool imagery that resonates with Uzumaki heritage. An insect breathing draws from arthropod movement patterns, Shinobu added, suggesting practitioner affinity might determine optimal style development. Jiraiya nodded thoughtfully. In theory, this means any skilled warrior with sufficient dedication could develop a breathing style aligned with their natural affinities. Creating an entire corps of demon slayers, the abbess concluded, voicing the logical extension of their discovery. Not just isolated individuals, but an organized force specifically trained to combat supernatural threats. The potential implications hung in the air between them, a vision of humanity no longer helpless against demonic predatory, but actively defending itself through specialized techniques. For Naruto, who had spent years as a solitary hunter occasionally supported by Jiraiya's network, the concept of a broader movement represented hope he'd scarcely allowed himself to consider. As if reading his thoughts, Shinobu met his eyes across the table. This would require infrastructure, training facilities, communication networks, supply chains. Not something that could develop organically. The temple could serve as initial foundation, the abbess offered. Our medical knowledge, protective barriers, and established reputation would provide legitimacy. And my intelligence network could identify potential recruits, Jiraiya added. There are talented individuals across all provinces who've encountered demons and rare individuals with natural potential for breathing techniques. Naruto listened to their planning with mixed emotions. The strategic advantages were obvious, yet something in him resisted. The institutionalization of what had been deeply personal techniques. Breathing styles weren't merely combat methods but expressions of individual spirit, partnerships between human determination and natural energy. We need to be careful, he finally said, drawing their attention. These techniques aren't just weapons to be distributed but relationships between practitioner and element. Forcing I.N. correct matches would create more liabilities than assets. Shinobu studied him with newfound respect. You're suggesting we need selection criteria beyond combat aptitude. Personality compatibility with specific breathing styles. Exactly. He gestured toward the ancient texts surrounding them. These accounts repeatedly emphasize harmony between warrior and element. Water breathing practicio. Nurse described as adaptive and fluid in thinking. Stone breathing users noted for unshakable resolve. These aren't coincidences but essential components of successful application. The breathing style must match the breather. Jiraiya summarized, nodding approval at his former student's insight. Which means we need diverse founding practitioners who can develop and teach styles aligned with their natural affinities. Shinobu's eyes lit with scientific enthusiasm. A controlled study group. We identify individuals with clear elemental affinities, develop specialized breathing techniques for each. Then document effectiveness across various demon encounter scenarios. That's one way to describe it, Naruto agreed, amused by her immediate shift to experimental framework. Though I'd raise it as finding partners who complement our existing knowledge. Their gazes held for a moment longer than strictly necessary, and spoken recognition passing between them that their own partnership had already demonstrated the power of complementary approaches. Where his spiral breathing created the foundation, her insect breathing had developed specialized application that neither could have achieved alone. The abbess cleared her throat discreetly. Perhaps we should continue this discussion after proper rest. Last night's battle and subsequent research have taxed everyone's resources. Oh, NLY then did Naruto realize they'd worked through the entire night and into morning without pause. Fatigue suddenly made itself known, muscles stiffening from sustained tension, eyes burning from hours of reading ancient texts. Wise counsel, Jiraiya agreed, stretching with audible joints popping. Strategic planning benefits from rested minds. As they prepared to adjourn, Shinobu approached Naruto privately. Her usual clinical demeanor softened by something more personal. "Thank you," she said simply, "for stopping me from attacking Benio recklessly. And for understanding about my sister." The vulnerability in her expression struck him more deeply than expected. Behind her scientific precision and occasional sharp edges lay grief similar to what had driven his own journey, loss transformed into purpose. "We both understand what it means to have something precious taken by demons," he replied quietly. "And what it costs to channel that pain into something constructive rather than destructive." She nodded, violet eyes holding his with unusual openness. "The combined breathing technique we created, it felt different from solo application. More resonant, harmonized energy," he agreed. "Your precision guiding my power, my reach extending your effect. Partnership amplifying both." Something shifted in her expression, subtle but significant. "I've worked alone since Kanae died. Believed it necessary for focus. Perhaps that assumption requires reevaluation." Before Naruto could respond, she turned away, composure reasserting itself like a protective mask sliding back into place. "Rest well, Uzumaki. Tomorrow we begin systematic documentation of breathing style fundamentals for future practitioners." He watched her depart, struck by the complexity beneath her controlled exterior. In just days, their relationship had evolved from skeptical assessment to battlefield partnership to something approaching genuine connection. What might develop with further collaboration remained to be seen, but Naruto found himself unexpectedly eager to discover possibilities. "Interesting woman," Jiraiya commented, appearing beside him with characteristic poor timing. "Brilliant mind, deadly skill set. Personal vendetta against demons. You certainly know how to find kindred spirits." "It's not like that," Naruto protested automatically. The sage raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Of course not. Just two exceptionally gifted individuals with complementary abilities creating revolutionary techniques through intimate energy synchronization. Nothing personal whatsoever." Naruto's glare only provoked Jiraiya's knowing grin. "Get some rest, student. Tomorrow begins something new, for all of us." Over subsequent weeks, the temple transformed from isolated scholarly retreat to bustling research center. Word of an Upper Kazuki's defeat spread through Jiraiya's network, drawing curious warriors, scholars, and survivors of demon attacks seeking knowledge or purpose. Naruto and Shinobu became the nucleus around which this emerging movement formed, their combined breathing technique serving as proof that demons previously thought invincible could be defeated through specialized methods. The abyss provided institutional structure while Jiraiya leveraged his extensive connections to secure resources and political protection. Each day began with training sessions where Naruto demonstrated spiral breathing fundamentals to promising candidates while Shinobu analyzed individual aptitudes for specific styles. Afternoons focused on theoretical development, studying ancient texts, documenting successful techniques, and creating standardized training progressions for different breathing styles. Evenings often found them in Shinobu's laboratory, refining toxin formulations or discussing applications for newly discovered breathing variations. These sessions gradually evolved from strictly professional exchanges to more personal conversations, particularly as exhaustion lowered normal barriers. Why butterflies? Naruto asked one night as they examined a promising compound under lamplight. Your sword guard, your techniques, they all reference butterflies specifically. Shinobu's hands stilled momentarily before resuming their precise movements. Kanae loved them, she answered softly. Said they represented perfect transformation, fragile beauty emerging from shapeless potential. A sad smile touched her lips. She collected specimens, studied their flight patterns, designed her sword Tsuba based on swallowtail wing structure. And you adopted the symbol to honor her, Naruto observed. Initially, yes. She carefully measured liquid into a test vial. Later it became something more. Butterflies are perceived as delicate, harmless, yet some species contain toxins potent enough to kill predators many times their size. Beauty concealing deadly capability. Like you, he noted without thinking. Her eyes flashed to his, surprise evident. Before her expression softened into something more vulnerable. Few people see beyond initial impressions. You did. Almost immediately. Professional hazard, Naruto replied with a slight smile. Jing combat potential quickly becomes second nature when facing demons regularly. Is that all it was? Professional assessment. Her question carried weight beyond the simple words. Before he could formulate a response that navigated increasingly complex feelings, a temple attendant appeared at the laboratory entrance. Forgive the interruption, the young woman said with a bow. A messenger has arrived with urgent news for Uzumaki-san and Kocho-san specifically. They followed her to the abyss's study where Jiraiya waited with a travel-stained courier. The messenger, a sharp-eyed woman in nondescript clothing that belied her evident combat training, bowed formally before delivering her report. 3 villages along the northern trade route have been completely destroyed in the past week. No survivors, no bodies, just empty buildings and signs of struggle. Demon feeding grounds, Naruto concluded grimly. Similar to patterns of observed previously. There's more, the messenger continued. Witnesses from neighboring areas report unusual phenomena before the disappearances. Severe storms appearing without warning, lightning striking from clear skies, winds strong enough to uproot trees. Shinobu frowned. Weather manipulation exceeds known demon capabilities. Even Upper Kazuki can't control natural elements directly. Unless, Jiraiya interjected, Muzan has begun reading specialized demons specifically to counter breathing styles. Weather disruption would interfere with breathing technique effectiveness. The implications sent a chill through the room. If Muz and was already adapting tactics based on their recent success, the situation was evolving more rapidly than anticipated. We need to investigate immediately, Naruto decided. See exactly what we're facing before more villages are lost. Agreed, Shinobu said without hesitation. Field observation will provide critical data for countermeasure development. The abbess nodded approval. Take whatever supplies you require. The temple will continue training potential candidates in your absence. As they prepared for departure the following morning, Naruto found Shinobu in the western garden, Ot training but kneeling before a small stone marker partially hidden among flowering plants. He remained at respectful distance, recognizing a private moment, but she sensed his presence nonetheless. A memorial for Kanae, she explained without turning. Not her actual resting place, that was lost when our family home was destroyed. But somewhere I can speak to her memory. Do you think she would approve? Naruto asked quietly. Of what we're creating here? Shinobu was silent for a long moment before responding. She always believed humans could defend themselves against demons through knowledge rather than fear. That understanding their nature was key to defeating them. She touched the stone gently. In that sense, yes. This emerging core embodies her philosophy. She rose gracefully, turning to face him with unexpected openness. What about you? Is this what you envisioned when you began developing spiral breathing? Honestly, no. Naruto gazed across the training ground where earlier that day, 30 potential demon slayers had practiced fundamental techniques. I never thought beyond survival and vengeance. The possibility of creating something larger than myself, that came later. When we combined breathing styles, she suggested. Perhaps even earlier, he admitted. When I realized partnership with Kurama created something neither of us could achieve alone. That principle extends beyond just Biju and host. Shinobu stepped closer, scientific detachment temporarily set aside. We work well together. Our approaches complement rather than conflict. That's rare in my experience. In mine as well, Naruto acknowledged, increasingly aware of her proximity. Most of my life has been solitary by necessity. Partnership requires trust I've rarely extended. Yet you trusted me almost immediately with knowledge of the 9 tails, she noted. Why? He considered the question seriously before answering. Because you saw me as I am. Not just as vessel or weapon or symbol. You questioned, analyzed, improved upon what I'd created rather than simply accepting or rejecting it. Something shifted in her expression, clinical interest warming into something more personal. For a moment, it seemed she might step closer still, but discipline reasserted itself as she straightened her shoulders. We should complete preparations for tomorrow's departure, she said, though her voice carried unusual softness. The northern villages will require thorough investigation. As they walked together toward the temple, Naruto sensed a subtle but significant change in their relationship, foundation laid for something beyond mere collaboration. What form it might eventually take remained uncertain, but like the breathing styles they were developing, it held potential limited only by their willingness to explore possibilities. Behind them, butterflies danced among flowers surrounding Kanae's memorial stone, their delicate wings catching sunlight in eerie descent patterns, beautiful and ephemeral, yet containing power to transform the world around them. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Strength of Heart. Heavy mist clung to the mountainside as Naruto and Shinobu descended from Butterfly Mountain, obscuring visibility beyond a few paces. The weather had shifted dramatically overnight, unseasonal fog rolling in from the north where they now headed. They moved with practiced coordination, having spent nearly a month developing not just breathing techniques but tactical partnership. This isn't natural, Shinobu observed, touching condensation that gathered on a tree trunk. She rubbed the moisture between her fingers, then brought them to her nose. Faint trace of sulfur, similar to compounds found in demon emissions when they manipulate environments. Naruto nodded, having learned to trust her sensory analysis. In their short time working together, they'd established a rhythm that leveraged their complementary skills, his combat instincts pair with her scientific precision creating a formidable investigative team. Kurama senses it too, he confirmed. Something corrupting natural energy patterns in the area. Their path wound through forests increasingly affected by unusual phenomena. Trees bent at impossible angles, their growth distorted as though stretched by unseen forces. Wildlife had vanished entirely. No birdsong, no rustling underbrush. Not even insects breaking the unnatural silence. Concentrated effect, Shinobu noted, documenting observations in the journal she maintained meticulously. Increasing in intensity as we approach the northern trade route. By midday, they reached a vantage point overlooking their destination, Momiji village, the first of 3 settlements reportedly destroyed. Even from a distance, the devastation was evident. Structures remained largely intact, but an eerie stillness pervaded the valley where the village nestled between forested hills. No movement, Naruto observed, enhancing his vision with spiral breathing. No smoke from cooking fires. No activity in the fields. Let's approach from downwind, Shinobu suggested, already adjusting their course. If demons remain in the area, minimizing our scent profile is prudent. They circled to approach from the southern edge, moving with increased caution as they entered the village perimeter. Up close, the abandonment appeared recent, laundry still hung on lines. Tools remained scattered where they'd been dropped, a cooking pot boiled dry over extinguished coals. Sudden evacuation, Shinobu murmured, examining doorways for signs of forced entry. Yet no evidence of panic or violence. Almost as if everyone simply walked away, Naruto added, uncomfortable with the implications. They methodically searched building after building, finding the same pattern repeated throughout the village. No bodies, minimal signs of struggle, personal belongings left behind. The population had vanished without apparent resistance. In the village center, they discovered the first concrete evidence of supernatural involvement. A perfect circle of blackened earth surrounded the community well, the ground crystallized as though subjected to intense heat. Within this circle, intricate patterns had been burned into the earth, symbols neither recognized from their extensive study of demonic writings. Shinobu knelt to examine the markings, careful not to touch them directly. Ritualistic, she determined. These patterns follow mathematical principles similar to summoning circles documented in temple archives, but with significant variations. Summoning what? Naruto asked, Kurama's energy stirring uneasily within him. Unknown. She made careful sketches of the symbols in her journal. But the precision suggests intelligence beyond standard demon capacity. This wasn't random destruction but calculated procedure. As Shinobu documented the scene, Naruto expanded his senses through enhanced spiral breathing, Ching beyond visual observation to energy patterns in the surrounding area. Something nagged at his awareness. Not immediate danger but lingering resonance, like ripples spreading from a stone cast in still water. There's a trail, he finally identified. Not physical tracks but energy displacement leading north toward the next village. Shinobu looked up from her documentation. You can sense that specifically. Recently developed application, he explained. Combining spiral breathing with Kurama's natural sensitivity to corrupted chakra. Demons leave energy disturbances like scent markers to tracking dogs. Her eyes lit with scientific interest. Fascinating. The sensory applications of breathing techniques continue expanding beyond my initial projections. She closed her journal decisively. Can you follow this energy trail? Naruto nodded, already orienting himself toward the subtle disturbance pattern. It's fading but still distinct. We should move quickly before it dissipates completely. They departed immediately, following the invisible trail that wound not along established roads but through forests and across streams, a path that would leave no physical traces for conventional tracking. The journey took them northeast, deviating from the expected route toward the second reported village. They're not following logical travel patterns, Shinobu observed as they paused briefly at a stream crossing. This path adds nearly a day's journey between settlements. Unless the destination isn't the next village at all, Naruto suggested. What if these attacks are secondary effects of something else entirely? The possibility shifted their perspective on the investigation. Rather than pursuing the next settlement directly, they followed the energy trail into increasingly remote territory, rugged foothills giving way to steeper terrain where human habitation grew sparse. By late afternoon, they caught their first glimpse of what might be their actual destination. Deep in a narrow valley, partially obscured by unusual mist formations, stood a small shrine complex unlike any standard Buddhist or Shinto design. Its architecture featured unsettling buildings that seemed to bend toward a central structure constructed from black stone that absorbed rather than reflected light. That doesn't appear in any regional maps, Shinobu noted, studying the compound through a small telescope from their concealed position on a ridge above. And the construction materials aren't local. It feels wrong, Naruto added, struggling to articulate the sensation. Like reality doesn't quite fit properly around it. They observed for nearly an hour, documenting movement patterns around the shrine. Figures occasionally emerged from buildings, some with distinctly inhuman proportions, others appearing ordinary until they moved with the unnatural fluidity characteristic of demons. Most activity centered around the main structure, where periodic sheaves of sickly green light emanated from narrow windows. Research facility, Shinobu concluded, her scientific background recognizing patterns. The systematic movement, the specialized architecture, the controlled access to the central building, all consistent with experimental operations. Demons conducting research, Naruto questioned, the concept unsettling. On what? Unknown without closer observation. She adjusted her telescope focus. But given recent patterns, potentially related to weather manipulation or mass human control, the strategic implications were concerning. If Demo NS had progressed beyond random predation to organized research, the threat level had escalated significantly. Their initial investigation into destroyed villages had uncovered something far more troubling. We need better information before reporting back, Naruto decided. Night approach would provide optimal cover for closer reconnaissance. Shinobu nodded agreement. The compound's eastern quadrant shows minimal activity. Potential infiltration point after sunset. They retreated to establish a temporary camp well removed from potential patrol routes, using the remaining daylight to prepare for night operations. Shinobu checked her specialized equipment, poison compounds, collapsible reconnaissance tools, and the communication seals Jiraiya had provided before their departure. Naruto maintained his sword and reviewed mental maps of the area, planning multiple extraction routes if discovery forced rapid retreat. As darkness approached, he noticed Shinobu's unusually pensive expression, sage as she organized her gear with characteristic precision. Concerned about the approach, he asked, recognizing signs of preoccupation in her normally focused demeanor. She glanced up, momentarily surprised at his perception. Not about tactical elements. Those variables are calculable. She hesitated before continuing. I'm considering broader implications. If demons have established research operations, it suggests organizational capabilities far beyond our current models. The Demon Slayer core we're developing may be insufficient against this level of sophistication. The admission revealed vulnerability rarely displayed in her typically confident analysis. Naruto set aside his preparations to give her his full attention. We adapt, he said simply. That's always been humanity's advantage. Demons gain power through consumption, we advance through innovation. What we're creating with breathing styles is just the beginning. A scientifically optimistic perspective, she noted with a hint of her usual dry humor. Though outcome probability remains concerning. Probability doesn't determine individual actions, he countered. If it did, I'd have died years ago when odds were overwhelmingly against my survival. Something softened in her expression. Your persistence despite statistical improbability is admittedly remarkable. It defies rational explanation. Maybe that's exactly our advantage. Naruto suggested. Demons understand power hierarchies and predation. They don't comprehend human determination or sacrificial protection. It makes us unpredictable to them. Shinobu considered this perspective, her analytical mind engaging with the concept. An interesting hypothesis. Human irrationality is strategic advantage. A rare smile touched her lips. Perhaps that explains why I occasionally find your impulsive decisions effective despite their apparent illogic. Was that almost a compliment? He teased, grateful to see her tension easing. Merely scientific observation, she replied primly, though the subtle warmth in her eyes betrayed her. Your methods occasionally produce results that contradict projected outcomes. It's statistically anomalous. I'll take. Statistically anomalous. Over. Recklessly impulsive, Naruto laughed. Coming from you, that's practically effusive praise. Their light exchange dissipated the earlier heaviness, restoring the comfortable partnership that had developed between them. As night fell completely, they made final preparations for their reconnaissance mission, synchronizing their breathing techniques to enhance night vision and minimize sound production. Stay within visual contact range, Shinobu instructed as they prepared to descend toward the compound. Signal protocols as established. Primary objective is information gathering, not engagement. Naruto nodded, appreciating her methodical approach to operations. Agreed. Observation only unless circumstances force alternatives. They moved like shadows through the forested slope, their breathing techniques allowing navigation through near-total darkness without conventional tools. As they approached the compound's perimeter, unusual energy patterns became increasingly apparent, distortions in natural chakra flow that created disorienting effects similar to optical illusions. Barrier technique, Naruto whispered when they paused behind a massive fallen tree. Not physical but energetic, designed to confuse human perception. Shinobu nodded, having felt the effect despite lacking his sensitivity to chakra fluctuations. Can we circumvent it? Together, he confirmed. Synchronized breathing to stabilize perception. Like what we developed against Benio's poison mist. They positioned themselves back to back, creating complementary breathing patterns that created a balanced energy field around them. Where spiral breathing provided raw power to disrupt the barrier's effect, insect breathing supplied precise control that maintained their sensory accuracy. The approach worked. As they advanced into the barrier's influence, its disorienting effects washed around rather than through them, allowing clear perception where unprotected humans would experience confusion and misdirection. The compound's eastern section proved less secure than its imposing appearance suggested. Guards patrolled with predictable timing that left exploitable gaps, and construction irregularities provided access points where buildings met the surrounding terrain. They slipped inside the perimeter during a calculated interval, taking cover beneath elevated walkways that connected outlying structures. From this closer vantage point, details emerged that hadn't been visible from their distant observation point. Symbols similar to those found in Momiji village adorned doorways and support columns, glowing faintly with unsettling bluish light. More disturbing were the containers positioned at regular intervals throughout the compound. Large ceramic jars sealed with elaborate mechanisms and inscribed with characters Naruto recognized from his studies with Jiraiya. Soul containment vessels, he whispered, pointing them out to Shinobu. Ancient technique for capturing and preserving human spirits. Her expression darkened with immediate understanding. The missing villagers, not killed but harvested. The implication was horrifying yet aligned with their observations. Not bodies taken for consumption but souls extracted for some unknown purpose, a level of sophisticated cruelty beyond standard demon behavior. They continued their infiltration toward the central building, documenting patrol patterns and facility layout in whispered exchanges. As they neared the main structure, activity increased, demon at end dance moving purposefully between buildings, carrying materials or escorting human prisoners whose vacant expressions suggested mental manipulation. The central building's entrance was heavily guarded, making direct access impossible without detection. However, a partially open window on the second level offered potential observation opportunity if they could reach it unnoticed. Naruto pointed it out, and Shinobu nodded understanding of his intent. Using breathing techniques to enhance their physical capabilities, they scaled the adjoining structure during a calculated gap in patrol coverage. From this higher position, they traversed a narrow decorative ledge that provided access to their target window. The maneuver required perfect balance and timing, executed flawlessly through their now intuitive coordination. The window opened into what appeared to be an observation gallery overlooking a larger chamber below. They positioned themselves carefully to remain concealed while gaining visual access to the main room, a circular space dominated by an elaborate ritual arrangement. At its center stood a crystalline structure that pulsed with sickly green energy, surrounded by concentric circles of the strange symbols they'd discovered in the abandoned village. More disturbing were the human subjects positioned at precise intervals around this arrangement, 12 individuals in deep trance states, connected to the central crystal by threads of luminous energy that seemed to be drawing something essential from their bodies. Supervising this process was a figure whose appearance immediately identified its significance. Upper Kazuki, Shinobu breathed, barely audible even to Naruto beside her. Unlike Benio with her elegant human appearance, this demon made no effort to maintain humanoid form. Its body resembled weathered stone given impossible mobility, with multiple limbs emerging and retracting as needed for various tasks. Most distinctive was its head, a collection of crystalline formations arranged in approximate facial structure, with eyes that shifted position as they observed the ritual proceedings. Gyoko, Naruto identified from Jiraiya's intelligence briefings. Fifth in the upper ranks. Specializes in dimensional manipulation and containment techniques. They watched as Gyoko directed adjustments to the ritual configuration, its voice a discordant resonance that seemed to vibrate through solid matter rather than air. The human subjects responded to these adjustments with synchronized movements despite their trance states, shifting positions altered energy flow through the crystal structure. They're using humans as conductors, Shinobu analyzed, her scientific mind grasping the principles despite their supernatural context. Channeling energy through living vessels to stabilize a process that would otherwise collapse. But channeling what? Naruto questioned. And to what purpose? Their answers came moments later as the ritual reached some critical threshold. The central crystal flared with blinding intensity, creating a vertical beam that pierced the ceiling through a precisely positioned aperture. Outside, the night sky, visibly distorted above the compound, clouds forming from clear air, swirling in unnatural patterns as lightning crackled between them. Weather manipulation, Shinobu confirmed their earlier hypothesis. But on a scale that shouldn't be possible without massive energy expenditure. They're using human souls as fuel source, Naruto realized with growing horror. The missing villagers, their spiritual energy powers this technique. The implications were staggering. If demons could harness human souls as energy sources rather than merely consuming bodies, their potential power expanded exponentially. Such capability would explain the pattern of empty villages, not random feeding but calculated harvesting for specific purpose. As they processed this revelation, something shifted in the ritual chamber's atmosphere. The upper Kazuki suddenly tilted its crystalline head toward their observation position, multiple eyes focusing with terrifying precision. Intruders, it announced in that strange resonant voice. How interesting. Their concealment compromised, Naruto and Shinobu abandoned stealth for rapid extraction. They moved in perfect synchronization, breathing techniques Yuli engaged as they retreated the way they'd come. Behind them, alarm signals echoed through the compound as guards mobilized to intercept. Primary exit compromised, Shinobu noted as they reached the rooftop and observed demon forces converging on their planned escape route. Secondary path through northern section, Naruto decided immediately. Terrain advantage if we reach the waterfall cliffs. They changed direction, moving across rooftops to avoid ground-level interception. Their breathing techniques allowed physical feats impossible for normal humans, leaping across gaps that would have stopped conventional infiltrators. Maintaining speed that temporarily outpaced their pursuers. The compound's northern boundary featured a steep natural cliff where a seasonal waterfall had carved the mountain face into treacherous but navigable terrain, difficult for pursuit, especially by demons whose regenerative abilities wouldn't help against falls that would shatter even supernatural bodies beyond recovery capacity. They reached this boundary slightly ahead of their pursuers, pausing momentarily to assess the descent route. Below, the waterfall dropped nearly 100 meters to a rocky pool, surrounded by boulder-strewn forest that would provide cover if they could reach it safely. Controlled descent through breathing synchronization, Shinobu proposed, already calculating angles and handholds. 78% success probability with current conditions. Agreed, Naruto confirmed, impressed as always by her immediate technical assessment. On 3. Before they could initiate their descent. However, a massive impact shook the cliff edge where they stood. Rock cracked beneath their feet as Gyoko materialized through some spatial distortion technique, its stone-like body reconfiguring into combat formation. Curious humans, it observed, voice vibrating through their bones. Breathing practitioners. Rare specimens indeed. They shifted immediately to defensive positioning, drawing their swords in fluid synchronization. Direct combat with an upper Kazuki hadn't been their objective, but escape now required confrontation. Shinobu, Naruto communicated through their established battle language. Cliff edge advantage. Containment pattern. She nodded almost imperceptibly, understanding his intent without further explanation. Their month of training together had developed communication that transcended words, each reading the other's strategic thinking through minimal cues. They separated to flank the demon, initiating their respective breathing techniques at maximum intensity. The air around them charged with visible energy, Naruto's spiral patterns interweaving with Shinobu's insect-like precision. Gyoko observed with evident curiosity. Fascinating energy manipulation. Lord Muzan will be pleased when I deliver such interesting specimens for study. You assume you'll be reporting anything after this encounter, Shinobu replied coldly. Her blade gleaming with applied wisteria compound. The demon's crystalline features rearranged into approximate amusement. Bold assertion from fragile constructs. Your breathing techniques are impressive evolutionary adaptations, but ultimately insignificant against established upper-rank power. It attacked without further warning, limbs extending at impossible speeds toward both targets simultaneously. Naruto deflected the strike aimed at him with spiral breathing, third form, while Shinobu evaded with the butterfly-like movements of her insect breathing. What followed was combat, unlike either had experienced previously. Where Benio had fought with poison and conventional physical attacks, Gyoko manipulated space itself, creating distortions that made distance and direction unreliable concepts. Attacks emerged from unexpected angles, terrain shifted beneath their feet, and conventional tactical positioning became nearly meaningless. Yet their breathing techniques provided unexpected advantage. The demon's spatial manipulations affected physical reality but struggled to disrupt the energy patterns created through disciplined breathing. By maintaining their techniques at maximum output, they established zones of stability within the chaotic battlefield, small areas where their perceptions remained trustworthy. The cliff edge, Naruto called as they weathered another impossible attack sequence. Force it toward the boundary. They adjusted their movements to create hurting pressure, using synchronized attacks to limit the demon's positional options. Gyoko seemed initially amused by their strategy, allowing itself to be maneuvered while launching increasingly creative counterattacks. "Your coordination is remarkable," it commented during a momentary pause in combat. "Almost as though you share consciousness. Such specimens would provide valuable research data." "We're not interested in contributing to your experiments," Shinobu replied, maintaining our breathing rhythm despite sustained exertion. "Participation isn't optional," the demon responded with cold certainty. "Lord Muzan has specific interest in breathing practitioners. Your techniques are present problematic evolutionary development that requires study and neutralization." This confirmation of their earlier theory, that Muzan specifically feared breathing styles, provided validation of their work's significance. It also suggested they had become priority targets for the demon hierarchy, explaining the elaborate research operation they had discovered. The combat resumed with increased intensity. Gyoko apparently tiring of the exchange and moving to conclude matters. Its attacks gained speed and complexity, forcing them into increasingly defensive postures despite their breathing enhancements. Combined technique, Naruto suggested as they narrowly avoided a particularly devastating attack sequence. Like with Benio but modified for spatial target. Shinobu nodded. "Alred, why adjusting her breathing pattern to synchronize with his?" Their previous combined technique had targeted a poison-based demon through specific chemical interactions. This situation required different application, countering spatial manipulation rather than toxin deployment. They executed a complex maneuver that appeared to create an opening in their defense, a calculated risk based on Gyoko's observed attack patterns. The demon responded predictably, launching multiple limbs through the apparent vulnerability while shifting its main body to capitalize on expected impact. Instead of striking flesh, however, its attack encountered perfectly synchronized breathing energy, spiral and insect patterns interwoven to create a localized stabilization field that momentarily neutralized the demon's spatial distortions. The effect lasted mere seconds but proved sufficient for their purpose. With its spatial manipulation temporarily disrupted, Gyoko experienced momentary disorientation, enough for Naruto to execute spiral breathing, fifth form, storm center strike, directly against its crystalline core. Simultaneously, Shinobu delivered precisely targeted wisteria compound through insect breathing, third form. Hornet's nested strike. The combined attack didn't destroy the upper Kazuki, their technique lacked the refined power they'd developed against Benio, but it created sufficient impact to unbalance the demon at the cliff's edge. Stone cracked beneath its weight, already compromised from earlier combat impacts. Gyoko's multiple eyes widened with unexpected concern as it felt the ground giving way. Clever approach, it acknowledged as the cliff edge crumbled. Though ultimately futile, this vessel is merely temporary. The demon plummeted with the collapsing rock face, its heavy stone body accelerating toward the distant pool below. They didn't wait to confirm impact, immediately executing their planned escape through the forest on the cliff's northern edge. "It will survive the fall," Shinobu noted as they put distance between themselves and the compound. "Upper Kazuki regeneration capabilities exceed standard limitations. But recovery will require time," Naruto added. "And we've gained critical intelligence about their operations." They maintained enhanced speed until reaching a safe distance, finally pausing in a secluded valley several kilometers from the demon compound. Dawn approached, providing better visibility as they assessed their condition after the encounter. Minor lacerations, possible cracked rib, spiritual exhaustion from sustained breathing technique application. Shinobu catalogued her injuries with clinical detachment, within acceptable parameters for information obtained. Naruto smiled despite their situation, finding her analytical self-assessment endearing in its precision. We need to report immediately to Jiraiya in the Abyss. This operation changes our understanding of demon organizational capacity. Agreed. Shinobu retrieved a communication seal from her equipment. Though complete analysis will require additional data points. As she prepared the communication technique, Naruto expanded his senses through spiral breathing, confirming they hadn't been followed. The process revealed something unexpected, a disturbance in natural energy patterns coming from the northeast, distinct from the demon compound's influence. There's another anomaly, he reported, focusing on the subtle disruption. Different signature from Gyoko's operation. More chaotic. Approximately 10 kilometers from our position. Shinobu paused her communication preparation. Potentially related to the weather manipulation experiments. Secondary testing site, unclear, Naruto admitted, but the energy pattern feels more reactive than controlled. Almost like natural energy responding to unusual stimulus rather than directed manipulation. She considered this assessment, weighing options with characteristic thoroughness. The communication seal will require 12 hours to receive response. Investigating this secondary anomaly while waiting would maximize operational efficiency. If it's another demon research site, additional intelligence would be valuable, Naruto agreed. Decision made. They sent their report through Jiraiya's specialized communication technique, then oriented themselves toward the new energy disturbance. Despite fatigue from their encounter with Gyoko, both recognized the importance of comprehensive intelligence gathering before returning to Butterfly Mountain. Their journey toward the anomalous energy source led through increasingly rugged terrain, forests giving way to rocky highlands where vegetation grew sparse. By mid-morning, they detected smoke rising from what appeared to be a small settlement nestled in a protected valley, an unexpected discovery in such remote territory. Unregistered village, Shinobu noted, consulting her regional maps. No documented settlements in this area. Recent establishment perhaps, Naruto suggested, are deliberately unmarked for protection. As they approached cautiously, signs of recent conflict became apparent. The village perimeter showed damage consistent with defensive fighting, improvised barricades, impact scars on trees and rocks, and the distinctive residue Shinobu had identified as demon presence markers. More RP rising was evidence that the defense had succeeded. Unlike Momiji village with its eerie abandonment, this settlement showed signs of continued habitation, smoke from cooking fires, agricultural activity in small terraced fields, and the sound of hammering as damaged structures underwent repair. They repelled a demon attack, Naruto observed with surprise, without apparent breathing practitioners or specialized weapons. This anomaly warranted closer investigation. They approached openly rather than through stealth, not wishing to appear threatening to a community already recovering from supernatural assault. As they neared the village edge, their presence was quickly noticed, lookouts stationed on elevated platforms signaling their approach with distinctive whistle patterns. Villagers emerged from buildings with evident wariness, carrying implements that had been repurposed as weapons, farming tools modified with binding talismans, fishing spears decorated with protective charms, and in several cases, actual swords of varying quality. Their defensive formation demonstrated basic training and coordination unusual for typical rural settlements. A man stepped forward from this impromptu defense line, middle-aged with weather-worn features suggesting outdoor occupation, his bearing conveying authority without arrogance. Most notable was the massive Tetsubo war club he carried, with surprising ease despite its obvious weight. "Identify yourselves and your purpose," he called, voice carrying the distinctive accent of Western provinces. "We've had enough trouble without adding wandering strangers." Naruto stepped forward, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. Naruto Uzumaki and Shinobu Kocho were investigating unusual energy patterns and demon activity in the region. The man's expression remained guarded but showed flickers of interest at the mention of demons. "You're hunters then, professional or religious?" "Neither," Shinobu replied precisely. "We researchers developing specialized techniques for demon combat. The energy disturbance emanating from your village attracted our attention while investigating a separate incident." This explanatio clearly surprised the village spokesman. He studied them more carefully, noting their distinctive attire and the swords they carried. Researchers, with combat training and sensitivity to energy patterns. His skepticism was evident. Convenient timing. arriving just after we've repelled another attack. Another. Naruto focused on this detail. You've experienced multiple demon encounters recently. 3 in the past month. The man confirmed, his wariness gradually shifting toward cautious openness. More than we'd seen in the previous decade. Something stirred them up, driving Hem from traditional territories into new hunting grounds. This aligned with their broader observations about changing demon behavior patterns. Naruto decided direct honesty might yield better information than careful negotiation. We've discovered a demon research facility approximately 10 kilometers southwest of your position, he explained. Upper Kazuki level operation conducting experiment. TS with weather manipulation and human energy harvesting. The attacks on your village may connect to these activities. His frankness visibly startled the village spokesman, who hadn't expected such specific information freely offered. After a moment's consideration, the man lowered his weapon slightly. I'm Tanaka, village elder by default since the founder passed last winter. He gestured toward the settlement behind him. This is Shinsei village, established 7 years ago by those who survived demon encounters elsewhere. We exist without official registration to avoid unwanted attention. A village of survivors, Shinobu observed with newfound interest. Self-selected for combat experience against supernatural entities. Tanaka nodded. Everyone here has encountered demons and lived, either through skill, luck, or the sacrifice of others. We came together for mutual protection, developing methods to detect and repel attacks when possible. This explained the unusual defenses ND coordination they'd observed. Not typical village militia but experienced survivors who had formalized their knowledge into defensive systems. Your methods have proven effective, Naruto noted, genuine respect in his tone. Few communities successfully repel even single demon attacks without specialized training or weapons. We've developed some advantages, Tanaka acknowledged, then hesitated before continuing. Though our recent success owes more to specific individuals than general preparation. He seemed to reach a decision. You should meet Mitsuri. She's the reason we're still standing after last night's attack. He turned toward the village center, inviting them to follow with a gruff gesture that indicated provisional trust rather than complete acceptance. As they moved through the settlement, Naruto and Shinobu observed details that distinguished Shinsei from typical villages: buildings constructed with defensive positioning, communal spaces designed for rapid conversion to protected areas, and numerous subtle warding symbols incorporated into architectural elements. Your defensive preparations are impressive, Shinobu commented as they walked. Systematic ion of protective measures based on accumulated experience. Necessity drives innovation, Tanaka replied simply. When conventional protection fails, alternatives must be developed. They approach a modest building near the village center, distinguished by recently repaired walls and a partially collapsed roof under reconstruction. Several workers balanced on remaining structural elements, curing replacement beams with focused efficiency. Mitsuri, Tanaka called upward. Visitors you should meet. Demon researchers. Movement on the damaged roof caught their attention, a figure vaulting from the highest beam and descending in a controlled drop that would have seriously injured most humans. Instead, the person landed with casual grace before straightening to reveal a young woman in her early 20s. Naruto's first impression was of striking contradictions. Her hair fell in unusual dual coloration, pink fading to green at the tips, tied back in a practical braid for construction work. Her build appeared delicate at first glance, but closer observation revealed densely packed muscle beneath feminine curves. Most remarkable was her expression, open and warmly curious despite the wariness one might expect from a survivor village resident meeting strangers. Hello, she greeted with unexpected brightness, her voice musical and significantly more cheerful than their somber surroundings suggested appropriate. I'm Mitsuri Kanroji. Are you really demon researchers? That sounds fascinating. Her enthusiastic welcome contrasted sharply with Tanaka's cautious approach and general atmosphere of the recovering village. Shinobu raised an eyebrow at the incongruity, while Naruto found himself automatically responding to her genuine warmth. Naruto Uzumaki, he introduced himself with a slight bow. And this is Shinobu Kocho. We're developing specialized techniques for combating demons. Oh, like breathing methods? Mitsuri asked with surprising insight, her eyes widening with interest. I've been experimenting with something similar, though mostly through intuition rather than formal study. This revelation immediately captured their attention. Before they could inquire further, Tanaka interjected with contextual explanation. Mitsuri single-handedly defeated 2 demons during last night's attack, he stated matter-of-factly. Tore one apart with her hands when it threatened the children's shelter, then used Hayato's ceremonial sword to decapitate the second when it cornered our medical team. The casual description of such remarkable combat prowess, delivered without exaggeration or embellishment, heightened their interest in this unusual young woman. Bare-handed demon combat requires extraordinary physical strength, Shinobu observed, studying Mitsuri with renewed scientific curiosity. Well beyond normal human capacity. Mitsuri's expression shifted to something more complex, a mixture of pride and discomfort with the attention. I've always been strong, she explained, absently twisting a piece of metal roofing material between her fingers as though it were paper. It caused difficulties in my home village. People found it unsettling in a woman. Fools rejected what they didn't understand, Tanaka added with evident protective sentiment. Their loss became our salvation when she arrived here last year. The dynamics became clearer, a community of outcasts and survivors who valued unusual abilities that might be stigmatized elsewhere. Mitsuri's strength, rather than being a social liability, had become integral to the village's survival. You mentioned breathing experimentation, Naruto prompted, returning to her earlier comment. Self-developed techniques. Mitsuri nodded eagerly, seemingly relieved to shift focus from her strength to her methods. I noticed that controlling my breathing changed how effectively I could channel my strength. Different patterns produced different results, some enhancing raw power, others improving endurance or precision. Shinobu exchanged meaningful glances with Naruto. This independently developed application aligned perfectly with their breathing style research, suggesting universal principles rather than techniques exclusive to their specific training. Would you be willing to demonstrate? Shinobu requested, professional interest evident in her tone. Your approach might provide valuable insights for our ongoing research. Now, Mitsuri asked, glancing at the unfinished roof repairs. The building can wait, Tanaka decided. If these researchers can help refine your techniques, our entire defense system benefits. Show them what you've developed. With his permission granted, Mitsuri led them to an open area behind the main village structures, a training ground based on the equipment visible around its perimeter. Unlike the sophisticated facilities at Butterfly Mountain, this space featured practical implements, reinforced striking posts, makish, IFT weight training devices constructed from stones and logs, and crude training dummies that showed significant damage from previous use. I usually practice here when not handling construction or perimeter patrols, Mitsuri explained, removing her work jacket to reveal a sleeveless training koso that allowed unrestricted movement. The village has assigned me primarily to defense duties since discovering my capabilities. Your community shows impressive resource allocation efficiency, Shinobu noted with approval. Optimizing individual strengths for collective benefit. Mitsuri smiled at what she correctly interpreted as praise. Everyone contributes what they can. My strength is just more visible than other skills. She moved to the center of the training area. Should I demonstrate my basic technique first? At their affirmative response, she assumed a centered stance and closed her eyes in concentration. Her breathing pattern shifted visibly, deep, rhythmic inhalations followed by controlled exhalations. Unlike the spiral patterns Naruto employed or the precise insect-mimicking sequences Shinobu had developed, Mitsuri's breathing created rolling wave-like movements through her body. Energy visibly flowing from her core outward through limbs in pulsing patterns. Most remarkable was the visible manifestation around her, not orange-red like Naruto's or lavender like Shinobu's, but a warm pink energy that seemed to embody emotional rather than purely physical power. It radiated in heart-shaped patterns rather than linear or circular flows, expanding with each breath cycle. Extraordinary, Shinobu murmured, her scientific detachment momentarily overcome by genuine wonder. Completely distinct energy manifestation with unique flow characteristics. Naruto nodded agreement, recognizing something fundamental in Mitsuri's technique. It's emotionally driven, he observed. Where my power comes from determination and yours from precision, hers flows from emotional intensity. To demonstrate her technique's application, Mitsuri approached one of the reinforced striking posts, a massive tree trunk embedded deeply in the ground and wrapped with protective materials. Without apparent effort, she delivered a single open-handed strike that shattered the entire structure, sending splinters flying in all directions while the ground trembled from transferred force. That was approximately 60% capacity, she explained casually, dusting wood fragments from her hands. Full application damages the training area too extensively for practical use. Our matter-of-fact attitude toward such extraordinary strength highlighted her unusual perspective, someone who had integrated supernatural capability into normal life experience, viewing it as tool rather than defining characteristic. The breathing enhances your natural strength, Naruto noted, but more importantly, it provides control. Precision application rather than raw power alone. Mitsuri brightened at his understanding. Exactly. Before developing breathing techniques, my strength was sometimes problematic. I'd break things unintentionally or injure people with casual contact. The breathing creates connection between intent and execution. Shinobu circled her thoughtfully, analyzing the technique from different angles. The energy manifestation pattern suggests emotional foundation rather than physical or mental focus. Fascinating divergence from established models. Emotions have always intensified my strength, Mitsuri confirmed. Particularly protective feelings toward others. During attacks, my power increases significantly when defending community members rather than fighting for personal survival. This explanation illuminated her effectiveness during the village's defense, her strength enhanced by emotional connection to those she protected. The principle aligned with their understanding of breathing styles as expressions of individual essence rather than standardized techniques. Love breathing, Naruto named it, the concept forming fully in his mind. A style founded on emotional connection and protective devotion rather than combat principles. Mitsuri's eyes widened, recognition lighting her features. Yes, that describes it perfectly. Her enthusiasm was palpable. My strength flows most effectively through feelings of love and protection for others. A legitimate foundation for technique development, Shinobu acknowledged, her initial scientific skepticism yielding to observed evidence. Emotional states create measurable physiological changes that could theoretically enhance energy circulation when properly channeled. The conversation expanded into detailed technical exchange, with Mitsuri describing her self-developed forms while Naruto and Shinobu offered refinements based on their more formalized understanding of breathing principles. Despite her lack of scientific or martial arts background, Mitsuri demonstrated remarkable intuitive grasp of complex concepts, adapting suggestions immediately and incorporating them into her existing framework. As their discussion continued, Tanaka returned with news that shifted their focus from technical development to immediate concerns. Scouts report unusual weather formations gathering to the southwest, he announced without preamble. Similar to patterns preceding previous attacks, but larger in scale. Potential incoming threat within hours rather than days. This information connected directly to their earlier discovery at the Demon Research Facility. The weather manipulation experiments they'd witnessed were apparently continuing despite their confrontation with Gyoko. The Upper Kazuki is accelerating experimental timeline, Shinobu analyzed. Our interference likely triggered contingency protocols rather than halting operations. How many attacks has your village repelled successfully? Naruto asked Tanaka, strategic assessment already forming. 3 minor incursions. Last night's was the largest. 4 demons of intermediate capability rather than standard scavengers. The elder's expression darkened, but reports suggest this approaching force is significantly larger. Beyond our established defensive capacity. Evacuation options, Shinobu inquired practically. Tanaka shook his head, limited by terrain and vulnerable population segments. Man, why residents are injured from previous encounters or otherwise mobility restricted. Full evacuation would require minimum 36 hours we don't have. Then we defend, Mitsuri stated with simple determination. Her earlier cheerfulness hadn't diminished, but beneath it emerged steel-like resolve. With new breathing techniques and our existing defenses, we'll protect our home. Naruto assessed their tactical situation with growing concern. While Mitsuri's strength provided significant combat advantage, their total defensive force remained limited against coordinated demon assault. Strategic preparation would be essential to maximize survival probability. We need to establish prioritized defense zones, he suggested, thinking aloud. Concentric protection rings with specialized countermeasures at each level. Shinobu's wisteria compounds could create channeling barriers to direct attack flow toward prepared interception points. Village structural layout already incorporates such principles, Tanaka confirmed. Though additional chemical barriers would enhance effectiveness. Shinobu nodded, already mentally cataloging the compounds she carried and potential applications. I can prepare approximately 3 hours of barrier protection with available materials. Sufficient for initial defense phase but requiring physical interception for subsequent waves. I'll handle frontline engagement. Mitsuri volunteered without hesitation. My strength is most effective in direct combat where multiple targets can be engaged simultaneously. The simple confidence in her statement reflected neither bravado nor false modesty, just practical assessment of her capabilities and their optimal application. This pragmatic approach impressed Naruto, who had encountered many warriors unable to evaluate their own strengths and limitations objectively. Naruto and I will establish secondary intercept positions, Shinobu continued the tactical planning. Combined breathing techniques deployed strategically rather than continuously to conserve energy for extended engagement. Tanaka listened to their exchange with growing respect. You speak like experienced battlefield commanders rather than researchers, he observed. Your expertise extends beyond theoretical knowledge. Theory has limited value without practical application, Shinobu replied matter-of-factly. Our research methodologies prioritize field testing over abstract conceptualization. This understated description of their extensive combat experience against demons drew a small smile from Mitsuri. She means they fight demons regularly rather than just studying them, she translated. Their breathing techniques are battle-proven. Indeed, Tanaka acknowledged. Then we accept your tactical assistance gratefully. I'll mobilize village defense forces according to your recommendations. As the elder departed to organize community preparations, Mitsuri turned to them with unexpected warmth despite the impending danger. I'm glad you came, she said simply. Not just for the defense help, but because meeting others with breathing techniques makes me feel less unusual. The vulnerable Hones tie in her statement revealed something essential about her character. Beneath extraordinary strength and combat capability lay someone who had experienced isolation due to her differences. Finding others with similar specialized abilities clearly provided validation beyond tactical advantage. Unusual capabilities often create social distance, Shinobu observed with uncharacteristic empathy. Scientific anomalies face integration challenges within standardized community structures. Naruto translated her academic phrasing with a smile. She means we understand feeling different. My entire life, people kept distance because of the 9 tails sealed within me. Shinobu faced similar isolation due to her intellectual and combat focuses. The 9 tails, Mitsuri questioned, curiosity rather than fear in her expression. A powerful yokai spirit sealed inside me since birth, Naruto explained, watching carefully for her reaction. It enhances my abilities but marked me as different from childhood. Rather than showing the typical wariness such revelation usually provoked, Mitsuri's expression brightened with genuine interest. That's amazing. Is it a separate consciousness? Can you communicate with it? Does it have preferences or opinions about being sealed? Her barrage of curious questions rather than fearful withdrawal took Naruto by surprise. Even Shinobu, who had accepted his Jinchuriki status with scientific objectivity, hadn't responded with such open enthusiasm about Kurama's existence. I like this one, ***, Kurama commented unexpectedly within Naruto's mind. Unusual strength, direct questions, no fear response, refreshing change from typical human reactions. Kurama says he likes you, Naruto relayed without thinking, then realized he'd casually reveal. Communication with the fox spirit, something he typically kept private. Mitsuri's eyes widened with delight. Kurama, that's his name, and he can hear me right now. She waved slightly as though greeting someone standing nearby. Hello, Kurama, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for helping protect our village. The genuine sincerity in her greeting, completely lacking self-consciousness about addressing a sealed yokai spirit, prompted rare amused reaction from Kurama. Definitely unusual, ***, the fox commented. Tell her I acknowledge her greeting and find her strength, interesting. Naruto relayed this message, causing Mitsuri to beam with pleasure at the acknowledgement. Shinobu observed this exchange with thoughtful expression, noting the ease with which Mitsuri accepted supernatural elements that typically provoked fear or rejection in others. Your adaptability to anomalous phenomena is remarkable, she commented. Most humans experience significant cognitive dissonance when confronted with yokai consciousness concepts. Is that unusual? Mitsuri asked with genuine puzzlement. Accepting people as they are seems simpler than creating complications through judgment. Whether someone carries a yokai spirit or possesses unusual strength doesn't change their fundamental personhood. This straightforward perspective, delivered without philosophical pretension, revealed wisdom beneath Mitsuri's cheerful exterior. Her acceptance wasn't naivete but deliberate choice, valuing individuals based on character rather than circumstances or capabilities. Their conversation paused as village warning signals sounded, lookouts reporting visual confirmation of approaching weather anomalies. The unusual storm formation they'd witnessed being generated at the Demon Research facility now approached Shinsei village, dark clouds swirling with unnatural patterns and occasional flashes of sickly green lightning. Defense preparations, Shinobu stated, professional focus replacing conversational openness. Mitsuri, your breathing technique requires refinement for sustained combat application. While we implement chemical barriers, practice the modification sequence we discussed. The pink-haired woman nodded with immediate seriousness, her earlier casual demeanor transitioning seamlessly to combat readiness. Focused emotional channeling through standardized breathing patterns. I'll establish consistent rhythm before engagement. As Mitsuri began practicing her newly refined technique, Naruto and Shinobu moved to implement perimeter defenses, working in coordinated efficiency developed through their weeks of partnership. Village defenders watched with evident curiosity as Shinobu prepared specialized compounds and Naruto established energy-infused bone dairy markers that would enhance their effectiveness. The villagers have combat experience but limited specialized knowledge, Naruto observed as they worked. With proper training, many could develop breathing techniques suitable to their natural affinities. Potential recruitment pool for the Demon Slayer Corps, Shinobu agreed, her scientific mind always considering broader applications. Practical experience combined with technical training would create effective field operatives. If we survive this immediate threat, he added pragmatically. She glanced at him with rare humor despite the circumstances. Statistical probability favors our survival given demonstrated capabilities against previous Upper Kazuki encounter. Though variables remain insufficiently quantified for accurate prediction. In normal speech, we've survived worse odds before, Naruto translated with a smile. Approximately accurate translation, she acknowledged, the brief moment of warmth providing connection amid tactical preparations. As afternoon faded toward evening, unnatural darkness accelerated as the manipulated storm system enveloped the valley. Village defenders took positions according to the strategic plan they'd developed, with Mitsuri stationed at the primary approach where attacks would likely concentrate. Naruto and Shinobu established secondary positions that allowed rapid response to multiple sectors while maintaining visual communication with each other. The attack began not with direct assault but with environmental manipulation, the unnatural storm intensifying to produce effects beyond normal weather patterns. Lightning struck in coordinated sequences targeting defensive positions, while wind patterns created funnels that uprooted smaller structures and threatened larger buildings. Weather manipulation as primary attack vector, Shinobu observed, analyzing patterns with professional detachment. Consistent with research facility objectives we observed. Softening defenses before direct engagement, Naruto confirmed. Standard military strategy applied through supernatural means. Village defenders maintained discipline despite the intimidating display, implementing protective measures they'd established during previous attacks. Reinforced shelters withstood wind effects, while lightning rods installed on strategic structures redirected electrical strikes into prepared grounding systems. The preparation impressed Naruto, confirming Tanaka's description of a community built specifically for demon defense. These weren't ordinary villagers but specialized survivors who had developed systematic countermeasures through hard-earned experience. After approximately 20 minutes of weather assault, the expected direct attack materialized. Demons emerged from the storm darkness, not disorganized hunters but coordinated units moving with evident tactical purpose. Their formations suggested intelligence directing their movements rather than instinctual predation. 16 visible entities, Shinobu counted methodically. Varied morphology suggesting specialized function rather than random transformation. Consistent with experimental subjects rather than natural demon evolution. The approaching force split into assault groups targeting different village sectors, a level of strategic thinking rarely observed in standard demon encounters. This confirmed their hypothesis that Gyoko's research facility was developing enhanced demons with specific military applications. Central group approaching Mitsuri's position, Naruto noted, tracking movement patterns through enhanced perception. Largest specimens concentrated there, they've identified her as primary threat based on previous encounter data. As if confirming his assessment, he demons converged on Mitsuri's defensive position with focused determination. What they encountered, however, was not the same combatant from previous engagements. Mitsuri stood calmly at the village entrance. Her breathing technique fully engaged. The pink energy manifestation they'd observed during training had intensified dramatically, now forming distinctive heart-shaped patterns that pulsed in rhythm with her breathing cycle. Her expression showed neither fear nor anger but serene determination as she watched the approaching demons. Love breathing, she announced clearly as the first demons reached striking distance. First form. Heart's protection. What followed demonstrated why Tanaka had spoken of her capabilities with such certainty. Mitsuri moved with impossible speed and grace. Her strikes carrying force that shattered demon bodies on impact. Where most human combatants required weapons to effectively damage demons, her enhanced strength allowed direct physical engagement. Tearing through supernatural flesh with bare hands or simple strikes. More impressive than raw power was the precision of her technique. The breathing pattern they'd helped refine allowed perfect control of her extraordinary strength. Delivering exactly enough force for each situation without wasted energy or collateral damage. Her movements flowed with dance-like quality, the name, Heart's P. Rotection, manifesting literally as she created a defensive perimeter through continuous motion. Remarkable efficiency, Shinobu observed with professional appreciation. Natural aptitude enhanced Her breathing technique creates combat effectiveness exceeding conventional parameters. She's a natural breathing style user, Naruto agreed. Her intuitive development matched with formal technique creates something unique. Their analysis was interrupted as secondary demon groups bypassed Mitsuri's position, seeking alternative entry points to the village. These flanking units encountered the wisteria barriers Shinobu had established, which slowed but didn't stop their advance. As planned, these barriers channeled demon movement toward prepared interception points where Naruto and Shinobu engaged with their respective breathing styles. The three breathing practitioners created a defensive system that complemented their individual strengths. Mitsuri's love breathing provided front-line engagement against the main assault force, her extraordinary strength eliminating multiple opponents simultaneously. Shinobu's insect breathing delivered precision strikes against demons that penetrated the outer perimeter. Her wisteria compounds preventing regeneration after initial engagement. Naruto's spiral breathing allowed rapid response between defensive sectors, his techniques adaptable to varying threat types through different forms. Village defenders supported this core combat capability with coordinated tactics, using specialized tools to herd demons toward breathing practicio. Ners when possible or implementing containment measures when direct confrontation proved necessary. The entire community functioned as unified defense system rather than collection of individual combatants. Despite this impressive coordination, the demon assault scale presented significant challenge. As the battle extended beyond initial engagement, fatigue factors emerged among defenders. Maintaining breathing techniques at combat intensity required substantial energy expenditure, while the demons showed no signs of exhaustion or diminished capability. They're testing our endurance capacity, Shinobu noted during momentary coordination exchange with Naruto. Sustained assault rather than maximum intensity, strategic attrition approach. Confirmed, he agreed, recognizing the pattern from previous large-scale encounters. They're gathering combat data while wearing down defenses. Typical research operation methodology. This realization suggested the attack served dual purpose, OT just destroying the village but collecting performance information about breathing practitioners under extended combat conditions. Their techniques were being systematically observed and documented for future countermeasure development. As night fully descended, the battle entered critical phase. Defender resources showed signs of depletion, Shinobu's wisteria compounds diminishing, village Fig. HTERS accumulating injuries that reduced effectiveness, and even Mitsuri's extraordinary stamina beginning to show limitations after hours of continuous engagement. During brief respite between assault waves, the three breathing practitioners gathered for tactical reassessment. Current trajectory suggests defense system collapse within approximately 47 minutes, Shinobu calculated with clinical precision. Resource depletion curves indicate unsustainable position maintenance. Village evacuation still impossible given civilian mobility limitations and ongoing perimeter containment, Naruto added. Completing their situational assessment, strategic options limited to continued defense or counteroffensive targeting attack coordination source. Mitsuri, despite visible fatigue from sustained combat, maintained determined focus. There must be a central controller directing these units. Their coordination is too precise for independent action. Logical hypothesis, Shinobu agreed. Observed tactical adjustments suggest real-time command rather than pre-programmed patterns. Command entity likely observing from protected position. The storm center, Naruto identified. Extending his senses through enhanced spiral breathing. There's concentrated energy signature approximately 800 meters northwest of our position. Distinct from standard demon patterns, more controlled, more focused. Command target identified, Shinobu confirmed. Neutralization would potentially disrupt assault coordination, creating withdrawal opportunity for remaining demon units. Strike team approach, Mitsuri suggested immediately. Village defenders maintain perimeter while we target command entity directly. The strategic shift from defense to targeted offense represent significant risk. Removing their strongest combatants from the defensive perimeter would create vulnerability throughout the village. However, continuing their current approach guaranteed eventual resource depletion and defeat through attrition. Three-person strike team optimal configuration, Shinobu analyzed. Combined breathing techniques provide maximum effectiveness against upper Kazuki level entity, which command position likely indicates. Decision made. They quickly coordinated with Tanaka to reorganize village defenses for temporary operation without their direct support. The elder accepted the strategic necessity despite evident concern about vulnerability during their absence. How long can your people maintain perimeter integrity? Naruto asked frankly. 20 minutes guaranteed. Tanaka replied with equally direct assessment. Beyond that, progressive failure probable but not certain. Some sectors could hold longer depending on demon distribution patterns. We'll move quickly, Mitsuri promised. Her usual cheerfulness replaced by serious determination. If we succeed, the attack should lose coordination almost immediately. With plans established, the three breathing practitioners departed through a calculated opening in the defensive line, moving at enhanced speed toward the energy signature Naruto had identified. Their breathing techniques allowed navigation through the unnatural storm conditions that would have blinded or disoriented ordinary humans. Energy concentration increasing, Naruto reported as they approached their target. Signature consistent with upper Kazuki presence. Though distinct from Gyoko's pattern. Multiple protective layers detected, Shinobu added, her specialized senses identifying barrier techniques similar to those observed at the research facility. Approach will require synchronized breathing disruption to penetrate effectively. They slowed as they neared what appeared to be the storm's epicenter, a clearing within the forest where unnatural energy patterns converged in visible distortion. At the clearing's center stood a solitary figure seemingly unbothered by the violent weather surrounding them, tall and unnaturally thin. With paper-white skin and elaborate robes that moved in patterns contradicting natural wind flow. Upper Kazuki, Mitsuri identified, her love breathing intensifying in preparation for engagement. Different from descriptions of those you've previously encountered. Nakame, Shinobu supplied, recognizing the entity from temple records. 4th rank, specializes in mental manipulation and sensory distortion. The demon turned toward them despite their concealed approach, confirming Shinobu's identification of sensory capabilities beyond normal parameters. Its Ace featured no eyes in conventional positions. Instead, Small eye-like structures covered its exposed skin in seemingly random distribution, all blinking independently yet functioning as unified sensory system. Breathing practitioners, it acknowledged in melodious voice that carried easily through the storm noise. 3 distinct styles, excellent research specimens. We're not interested in contributing to your experiments. Naruto replied, Benihime humming softly as he drew the blade. The demon's lipless mouth formed approximation of smile. Participation isn't optional. Lord Muzan has specific interest in breathing technique neutralization. Your cooperation through combat provides valuable data regardless of outcome. This confirmation of their earlier assessment, that the attack served research purposes beyond simple destruction, validated their strategic shift to targeting the command entity directly. Combined approach, Shinobu suggested quietly. The 3 practitioners Ving established communication protocols during their journey from the village. Triangulation pattern with synchronized breathing transition on 3rd cycle. Mitsuri and Naruto nodded understanding, immediately moving to establish optimal positioning around the demon. Nakame observed these movements with apparent amusement, making no effort to prevent their tactical arrangement. Fascinating coordination, it commented. Behavior patterns suggest established partnership despite divergent technique foundations. Most interesting, its casual analysis during direct confrontation emphasized research-oriented nature of the encounter, the demon seemingly more interested in documenting their capabilities than eliminating them immediately. This academic approach, however, didn't reduce the danger it represented. As they completed their triangular positioning, each breathing practitioner intensified their technique to maximum output. The visual manifestation created striking contrast. Naruto's orange-red spiral patterns, Shinobu's precise lavender formations, and Mitsuri's flowing pink heart shapes all pulsing in increasing harmony as they synchronized their breathing cycles. On the 3rd cycle, they attacked simultaneously, not directly against the demon but against the energy barriers surrounding it. Where Naruto's spiral breathing created disruption in the barrier's foundation, Shinobu's insect breathing targeted specific weakness points identified through her analytical perception. Mitsuri's love breathing contributed raw power channeled with extraordinary precision, her emotional energy creating resonance that amplified the other's techniques. The combined effect shattered Nakim's protective barriers with unprecedented effectiveness, 3 breathing styles working perfect complementary harmony rather than simple parallel application. The demon's many eyes widened in genuine surprise as its defenses collapsed more completely than its calculations had predicted possible. Anomalous outcome, it stated with academic interest rather than fear. Breathing synchronization exceeds projected effectiveness parameters by significant margin. They pressed their advantage immediately, transitioning from barrier disruption to direct combat engagement without breaking rhythm. Their coordinated attack patterns demonstrated developing partnership despite limited PR. Actus together, Mitsuri's strength creating openings that Shinobu exploited with precision strikes, while Naruto's adaptable techniques provided coverage against the demon's countermeasures. Nakame roved formidable despite their coordination, its multiple sensory organs allowing perception and response from all angles simultaneously. More concerning was its environmental manipulation ability, creating localized distortions that affected gravity, air density, and even time perception within limited fields. Defensive capability exceeds previous encounter data, Shinobu noted as they regrouped after initial engagement. Adaptive response patterns suggest real-time analysis and countermeasure development. It's studying us while fighting, Naruto confirmed, recognizing the pattern from his encounter with Gyoko. Each technique we deploy provides data for immediate tactical adjustment. Then we show it something completely new, Mitsuri suggested, her breathing pattern shifting slightly. Something it hasn't calculated yet. Without further explanation, she initiated a variation of love breathing they hadn't observed during her previous demonstrations, a technique that amplified emotional energy beyond individual application to include resonance with nearby allies. Her pink energy manifestation extended tendrils toward Naruto and Shinobu, offering connection rather than attempting control. Love breathing. 4th form, she announced. Heart's resonance. Understanding her intent intuitively, they accepted the connection, allowing their individual breathing techniques to harmonize with her emotional foundation while maintaining their distinct patterns. The effect created something entirely new. not three separate breathing styles operating in coordination but integra. TED system where each enhanced the other's core strengths. Nakim's many eyes blinked rapidly as it observed this unexpected development. Technique integration beyond established parameters, it not. Ed with what might have been concern beneath its analytical tone. Unpredicted adaptation capability. They attacked again with this new harmonized approach, Mitsuri's emotional energy amplifying Naruto's power and Shinobu's precision beyond their individual capabilities. Where before they had functioned as coordinated team, now they operated as integrated unit, each movement flowing seamlessly in to the next without need for explicit communication. The demon's defenses, optimized against standard combat patterns, proved inadequate against this unprecedented approach. Its environmental manipulations lost effectiveness as their harmonized breathing created shared perception field that compensated for individual sensory distortions. Its physical capabilities, while formidable, couldn't match. Three breathing practitioners operating at enhanced efficiency through emotional resonance. As they pressed their advantage, Nakame made tactical decision that revealed its primary purpose, abruptly. Abandoning direct combat in favor of focusing entirely on the weather manipulation system it had established. The storm intensified dramatically around them, lightning strikes increasing in frequency and precision while wind patterns formed cutting edges that sliced through vegetation and stone alike. It's sacrificing direct engagement to maintain experimental data collection, Shinobu analyzed through their harmonized perception. Primary mission objective appears to be research completion rather than combat victory. Then we end the experiment permanently, Naruto decided, their shared breathing connection allowing immediate understanding without detailed explanation. They adjusted their approach accordingly, focusing combined effort on disrupting the demon's connection to its manipulation system rather than direct combat elimination. Where Mitsuri's strength provided raw power to penetrate the demon's defensive perimeter, Shinobu's precision identified the specific GY connections maintaining the weather control network. Naruto's spiral breathing created disruption patterns that severed these connections systematically. Nakame recognized their intent too late to establish effective countermeasures. As its weather control system began collapsing, the demon abandoned research priorities for self-preservation. Experiment terminated, it announced with peculiar formality. Data collection sufficient for preliminary analysis. Withdrawal protocol initiated. Before they could deliver final incapacitation, the demon's body began dissolving, not the standard destruction pattern when demons were fatally wounded, but controlled disintegration suggesting voluntary release of its physical form. The process completed within seconds, leaving only residual energy signature that quickly dissipated into the surrounding atmosphere. It abandoned its physical manifestation, Shinobu observed with scientific interest. Advanced technique suggesting temporary vessel rather than permanent form. Like Gyoko mentioned during our previous encounter, Naruto recalled. This vessel is merely temporary. They're using disposable physical forms for field operation. While maintaining their core essence elsewhere. As the demon's presence vanished completely, the unnatural storm began dissipating, its maintaining energy source removed. With immediate threat neutralized, they turned attention to the village where defensive combat continued despite reduced coordination among attacking demons. We should return quickly, Mitsuri urged, concern for her community evident. Without central control, the remaining demons will likely default to instinctual feeding behavior rather than strategic withdrawal. They rushed back toward Shinsei village, their harmony Z breathing techniques still maintaining enhanced capabilities developed during the confrontation with Nakame. Upon arrival, they found the defensive situation deteriorating but not collapsed. Villag. Defenders maintaining perimeter integrity through determined effort despite accumulating casualties. With their return, the tide shifted definitively. Naruto and Shinobu implemented their combined technique that had proven effective against Benio, systematically eliminating demons that had penetrated inner defense zones. Mitsuri's love breathing provided protective coverage for injured defenders while delivering devastating attacks against larger demon concentrations. By dawn, the battle concluded with decisive victory for the village defenders. The remaining demons, without coordinating intelligence directing their actions, had eventually broken against sustained resistance and withdrawn into surrounding forests where daylight would eliminate any stragglers. As village residents G'd from protective shelters to assess damage and treat wounded, the three breathing practitioners gathered to evaluate their encounter's strategic implications. The research focus confirms our earlier assessment. Shinobu analyzed methodically despite evident fatigue. Muzan is specifically targeting breathing techniques for neutralization development. Our effectiveness represents existential threat to demon hierarchy. And they're willing to sacrifice Upper Kazuki vessels to gather combat data, Naruto added, recognizing the concerning implications. These weren't simply attacks but FL.D experiments designed to analyze our capabilities and develop countermeasures. Mitsuri, though physically tired from extended combat, maintained her characteristic positive perspective. But we discovered something important too, the effectiveness of combined breathing techniques. Together we created something stronger than our individual styles could achieve alone. This observation highlighted the night's most significant development. The resonance technique Mitsuri had intuitively developed during combat had demonstrated potential beyond their existing understanding of breathing style applications. The emotional foundation of her love breathing had created connections that amplified all their techniques simultaneously. The harmonization effect requires further study, Shinobu noted. Scientific interest overcoming physical exhaustion. The emotional energy component appears to function as amplification medium rather than independent power source. In simpler terms, love makes other breathing styles stronger. Mitsuri translated with a smile. It creates connections that enhance everything else. Tanaka approached their discussion, his expression showing both weariness and profound gratitude. Your intervention saved our village, he stated without embellishment. Without your breathing techniques, we would not have survived this assault. Your community's preparatio and coordination were equally important factors, Shinobu countered accurately. Our techniques complemented existing defensive infrastructure rather than replacing it. The elder nodded acknowledgement of this assessment. Nevertheless, this experience demonstrates something we've suspected since founding this settlement. Isolated communities cannot withstand increasing demon organization without corresponding human cooperation. His statement aligned with conclusions they had reached through separate experiences. The breathing styles they were developing represented powerful tools against supernatural threats. But implementation required systematic approach beyond individual practitioners. The Demon Slayer Corps were establishing at Butterfly Mountain addresses this specific need, Naruto explained. Specialized training in breathing techniques combined with strategic coordination and information sharing networks. Tanaka's expression showed immediate interest. An organized response to supernatural threats rather than isolated resistance. Precisely what circumstances increasingly demand. We've been developing training methods for individuals with appropriate aptitudes, Shinobu added. Your village contains multiple candidates with combat experience and demonstrated adaptability to supernatural phenomena. You're recruiting, the elder concluded directly. Offering opportunity, Naruto corrected. For those who choose to develop their capabilities within structured system rather than independent application. Mitsuri had listened to this exchange with TFUL expression, unusual seriousness replacing her typical cheerful demeanor. This core you're developing, would there be place for someone like me? With unusual abilities but limited formal training, your natural aptitude for breathing techniques exceeds most trained practitioners, Shinobu answered with straightforward assessment. The love breathing style you've developed independently presents significant contribution to our understanding of technique foundations. Your participation would be valuable on multiple levels. The scientific precision of Shinobu's response might have seemed cold to those unfamiliar with her communication style, but Mitsuri correctly interpreted the substantial praise underlying the technical language. Her expression brightened considerably. Then I'd like to join you, she decided with characteristic directness. What I was able to accomplish alone pales compared to what we achieved together against Nakame. If breathing styles work better in harmony, then practitioners should operate similarly. Her simple logic cut through potential complications, focusing on fundamental truth they had discovered through combat partnership. The effectiveness of their techniques multiplied through cooperation rather than merely adding individual capabilities, creating something greater than the sum of separate parts. Your contribution would be welcome, Naruto confirmed with genuine warmth, particularly given your natural understanding of emotional foundations that enhance technical application. As discussions continued regarding practical aura, Engagements for interested village members to receive formal training. Naruto observed the emerging dynamic between Shinobu and Mitsuri with interest. Where Shinobu approached breathing techniques through scientific analysis and precise methodology, Mitsuri relied on intuitive understanding and emotional connection. Their contrasting approaches might have created conflict, but instead seemed to generate mutual appreciation for complementary perspectives. This pattern reflected broader principles they were discovering about breathing styles themselves, different approaches enhancing rather than contradicting each other when properly harmonized. The technical precision of insect breathing, the adaptable power of spiral breathing, and the emotional resonance of love breathing each contributed essential elements to comprehensive system greater than any individual style. As dawn fully illuminated the village, residents began recovery operations with remarkable resilience, treating wounded, repairing damaged structures, and strengthening defenses against potential future attacks. Within this activity, Naruto recognized something fundamental about human response to supernatural threats: not surrender to inevitability but determined adaptation despite overwhelming odds. The Demon Slayer core they were developing would formalize and enhance this natural human resilience, providing techniques, knowledge, and coordination that leveraged inherent determination into effective resistance. What had begun as Naruto's personal journey of survival and vengeance had evolved into something with potential to change humanity's relationship with supernatural threats fundamentally. As he watched Mitsuri organizing village recovery efforts with cheerful efficiency while Shinobu documented their combat findings with characteristic precision, Naruto felt unexpected optimism despite the challenges revealed by their recent encounters. The path forward remained dangerous and uncertain, but they were no longer walking it alone. "You're developing attachments, Kurama observed within his consciousness. Emotional connections beyond tactical partnerships. Is that a problem? Naruto responded internally, knowing the fox could sense his growing feelings for his companions. Not necessarily, the Biju replied thoughtfully. Human emotional bonds create both vulnerability and strength. Weakness through potential loss but power through protective determination. An interesting paradox your kind embodies. The fox's philosophical observation highlighted something important about their emerging breathing techniques, the integration of seemingly contradictory elements into harmonized whole. Vulnerability and strength, emotion and precision, instinct and analysis, all finding balance through proper breathing connection. As Shinsei Village began its recovery and plans formed for integrating interested members into formal training programs, the foundation for something truly significant had been established. Not just techniques for fighting demons but a community of practitioners whose different strengths created something greater than individual capabilities could achieve alone. The morning sun illuminated Mitsuri's pink-green hair as she laughed at something Shinobu had said, an unexpected moment of connection between two women with vastly different personalities and approaches. Watching them, Naruto recognized that the core they were building would draw strength precisely from such diversity, different backgrounds, different techniques, different perspectives. United through common purpose and mutual respect. Like breathing itself, continuous cycle of individual necessity that sustained collective life, their emerging partnership represented hope against darkness that had seemed insurmountable when faced alone. Chapter 3 End. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.